by theory.
Yes. I think we are. I see the little live button. All right.
Awesome. Okay, so hi, Haley. How you doing?
I am good. How are you doing, Corey?
Yeah, okay. It's been so busy this month. This first month.
It really has. Oh my gosh. This month just flew by for me. I can't believe it's almost February. I'm like, I feel very behind in everything. So that's been my January.
Yeah, so like so we were at the tail end of phase 1 according to the general schedule I created, which will probably have to change, maybe. We'll see, because phase 2 is concerning because the actual like making changes, and I'm fast, but I'm not that fast, so we'll see. It'll be interesting, but let's talk a little bit about like overall January in terms of goals that we had set over the last couple weeks. Like where are you on the goals that were set?
I did not finish my goals for this month by any means. I think my main goals were to start out with re-outlining, which I did do. So I did make like a big check box. That was a part of my goals for this month. But I was also just, oh my gosh, just so I also wanted to try it a different way, and I started because you told me about the mice method, and I printed out templates for the 4 major characters.
You're gonna try it?
Yeah, I'm trying it. Here, I brought it downstairs too, so I can show you.
I am so curious.
So this is what.
Oh, you got it.
I got it. So this is what it looks like.
I am curious how that works.
Yeah, so I'm still in the process of attempting to figure it out. I was looking up more about it, and there's this podcast that I watch called Writing Excuses, and so they had a thing about it too, so that I saw through the email that you sent me, that article. So I listened to that podcast and I looked into it a bit more. And I was like, like I just really wanted to see if it did have the mirroring effect, because I felt like, at least for the main protagonist in my book, it would work. Like, I started filling it out, and I definitely have more codes in Act 1 for my outline than in Act 3. But in terms of like where those like fall, they are pretty symmetrical to Act 1. It's just, I think I also just like coded more like little scenes within scenes for Act 1, so I used all 12 spots on this template instead of the Act 3 stuff. So that's kind of where I'm at. I also had a goal to get to where I left off at the end of NaNoWriMo, because I did like some work on it here and there post NaNoWriMo, but I really didn't do a lot, and so I wanted to refresh myself, especially with the re-outlining, to see where I actually am for the start of phase 2. So but I didn't get that far. So still got a little bit more outlining stuff to do before I read through it. But I have all my note cards, Oh,
that's good. That's actually quite a lot of progress.
So I have that at least plotted, and I read through all of. Yeah, I can show these too. I have all of these. So they're color coded through the different parts.
Yeah, so I saw some of those in like one of your videos you posted. You had them all over the floor.
I did. I was on the floor for a very long time trying to and then part 4, yeah. So I was on the floor for a very long time trying to figure out which order was in where, and I had a lot that I had moved around to different parts of the book, so it was a lot of reorganizing, and then and I still need to transfer that into Scrivener and then double check that they're all completely in that same order that I want. Yeah.
Scrivener is a whole nother beast, man. I actually that's where I'm stuck right now. Real quick, we do have some people who popped into the chat. Hi, Billy and Liv and Ruth. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. Hi guys. And yes, please hit the like button if you can, because it does help algorithm to find us. So thank you guys so much for showing up. Hi. I know it's probably pretty late in the United States for some people in certain coasts. I think East Coast is pretty late right now. But hi guys. We're just talking about where we are in our goals that we set for our writing in January, like what we were able to do, and what we didn't quite get to yet. So where we are right now, as Haley just mentioned, Scrivener. That's kind of where I'm stuck right now. I'm trying to transfer into Scrivener right now. So like I just finished my reread last night. So it took me a little longer than I expected because I was writing so many notes, but I was trying to also find solutions to the issues I was finding at the same time. So I was brainstorming and doing the notes. So it was a little slow going. I'm hoping I've got some really cool ideas for how to fix stuff, and I'm hoping that'll speed things up during this next part. But the Scrivener, that's a problem. Because I had to transfer everything into Scrivener first off, and while I'm doing that, I'm like, well, I might as well make sure how I've broken it up makes sense. I think the chapters are sort of broken up correctly. A few of the chapters might need to be fused together, but it's the scenes I'm really worried about and concerned with, is how the scenes are broken, or rather how the scenes are not broken. I feel like is concerning right now to me. So I'm right with Haley, where I'm trying to create that timeline and make sure it's synced properly. But I'm trying to transfer into Scrivener at the same time as doing that. So I have a feeling that that's going to just be throughout the entire editing process. Like I'll just go pretty much chapter by chapter, scene by scene, instead of trying to get the whole project into Scrivener all at once. I think I'll just go bit by bit and edit as I go, because it's huge. It's a huge project to do that.
Oh, for sure. Like I completely get that. I think that's a great way to go about it, because like when I was going in from my draft 1 into draft 2, like I transferred everything, I think right away. Like I transferred everything right away because I wanted to just automatically go in, and this was after like I read through it and everything, like sometime last year, like when I first started editing this book. It's been almost a year now. I'm like,
oh my God,
what the hell? Yeah, I think I started the rewrite of this book end of February last year, early March last year. Yeah, so it's been quite a time, but I did have to delete a lot of stuff. So, I mean, it's a time-consuming process. So, and I did wish that I had taken the time, kind of like you said, of going in and putting it in bit by bit as you're going through it, because I felt like afterwards, when I got like a few 4 chapters in and I realized like, oh, I had a major plot issue that I needed to replot the whole thing, I had already put those extra chapters in that I had to delete. So then I had to start a new one again. So I think that's a really good way to go about it, because then you won't have to redo it a third time like I had to do it.
I feel like the only reason I think I thought of doing it that way is because I use the bullet journal method. So for me, like if I put an arrow to migrate something to the next day or next week, before I actually rewrite it into the next, whatever sector it is, I have to think, do I really need to do this task or not? Does it really need to be migrated, or should I just cancel it? So I think like thinking that way and I applying it to my writing, it's like, well, if I'm doing it bit by bit as I go, then I also have to think, does this scene really need to be a thing? Is this really a scene that does something in my story, or is it freeloading? Do I not really need this scene? Is it important enough to transfer? So I'm hoping that helps me with like the cutting as well. If I need to cut, I think I probably need to add more than I need to cut at this point. But there is like one scene I'm pretty sure I'm going to cut. But most of the scenes I think just need more to them. They're a little bit too bare bones, and they need more dialogue. They need more descriptions, a bad one in certain places. Like when a scene is tense, I'm really good with description because I use the description to make the scene more tense. But when But when it's an action scene or something like that, or if people are moving very quickly, it's hard for me to get it in there. So I'm going to need like, because it needs to be quick sentences, but they
Right.
still need to describe. It needs to be fast, just like the characters moving fast. The description needs to be fast, but still effective. And that's something I need to fix.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm going back in, my main thing too is like dialogue tags. Like if I have a very fast like scene going with dialogue, then I usually write out all the dialogue first, and then I go back in and the descriptors or what's going on in between, and then sometimes I leave like a block of dialogue depending on what else is going on and making sure that it like still like makes sense. But yeah, I have like it's like the balance between like how much description do you need for the story to unfold so that the reader can really understand what's going on and visualize everything, versus like holding it back. Because you think about like some stories with too much description, I feel like a lot of writers get like hold up on that too, especially during the first draft. But I think like as long as the first draft should always be more about the story, and then in editing you go back in and you add everything. As long as you're still able to like
later. So exactly. So, but like we have some people in the comments saying like they kind of don't want to talk about progress. It's kind of like a rough one for them this month. We understand. We totally do. But looks like I did not hit any major goals, but I feel Billy said I did not hit any major goals, but I feel good for February. That's good. So long as you feel ready to keep moving forward, that totally works. Goals can always roll over into the next sector, so that's totally fine. But we also, Liv asked us what we're actually working on. So we probably should do that because we haven't really talked about what our projects are, and there might be some people here who joined us kind of later on in our journeys. Our channels have been around for a little while, so especially yours, Haley. You've been doing constant videos longer than I have. So let's go ahead and start with you. Would you like to describe a general idea of your book for us, please?
Sure, I would love to, Corey. Thank you. So my book is kind of a dystopian fantasy. So it starts out in this world unlike our own. That's more of a dystopian universe than a fantasy universe. But as it goes on, it becomes more and more inherent that it is more of a fantasy book than that. So it's kind of on a mix of genres where there's dystopian elements as well as fantasy and some sci-fi stuff in the mix as well. So the general premise is that there is this group of an affected population. So they use the word affected to describe these people. And they're all people who have evolved to have superhuman abilities. So it's definitely that like superhero kind of vibes, except nobody's a superhero. So they're all just kind of trying to survive in this world where the humans are trying to track them down and putting them into camps and trying to separate them from humanity and not wanting them to be on the east. So there's this east versus west. So it takes place in like a dystopian USA type of thing. Yeah, that's like the main premise. There's multiple realms. There's an evil demon queen of shadows type of person. We got a queen of the realm of ice too, and like all this other like more fantasy type things. Shadow creatures. It's a fun time. It's been a fun time. It's been a long time coming though. It's going on 6 years this July. So it's been but yeah, like I said, I've been revising it for the last year. So it's I'm excited though. I'm excited for the new route the plot is taking. I think in this next draft, especially with all my re-outlining stuff. So yeah, that's basically it. I hope I explained that well. I was trying not to give too much away, but be like a little.
That's interesting because I've been watching your videos for a long time now, and I got most of that, but I didn't know there was a demon queen going on. Like
well, that's how she's described. Yeah.
I didn't register that one, so that is an interesting, like, that completely changes how your book looks in my brain. Like, that's so cool to know. So you've got, like, a little bit more fantasy in there. That's so cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, so it starts out in a much more realistic world, and it just
kind of spirals.
Gets crazier as it goes on. Oh, and there's man-eating trees too. I forgot about that. I don't know why
How do
I
you
forgot
forget
about
the
that. That's a
man-eating
main
trees?
plot
That's
point.
awesome.
It's a main
That's awesome.
plot point.
I would think they'd be rather important. I think if trees could eat people here in our world, it would be kind of an important thing to know.
Mm-hmm.
Before you go outside, you should probably know about the man-eating trees.
Well, and it is in the it's not in one of the realms either. It's in the USA world that they are. So it's
That's bad.
I don't know why. All that radiation, you know.
Oh my God. So before I get to my book, Liv went ahead and shared with us what she's working on. She's working on a werewolf shifter romance trilogy. It's going to release this year. Wow. I'm not all that into werewolves, but that's awesome that you're doing a full trilogy. I can't imagine doing a trilogy. Oh my God. I'm having a hard enough time with one novel. Like, because trilogies, like series, you got to keep like continuity. And it's not just, you've got the plot line for the book, and then you have the plot line that interacts with other plot lines in the other book. And then you have the overall giant plot line that wraps up at the end of the last book. I can't imagine keeping all of those straight. So kudos. That's an insane amount of work to revise. So Godspeed. That's a lot.
Yeah. Good luck. Oh my gosh, werewolf romances were like my shit in high school though, like end of middle school, early high school. Like I couldn't get enough.
That was your thing.
Those. I was. That was the thing. I was reading all of that. I haven't read that like since high school, I don't think, but that was my jam. I was like, then they became too there was a lot that were too similar for me. Like I felt like I was rereading the same thing. There were a lot of so that's when I transitioned out.
Yeah, I feel like there was like a couple years where like it was kind of new, and there were quite a few newer authors that were doing it, because I wasn't into it, but like I would go to bookstores, because I love bookstores, even though I wouldn't buy anything. I would just like to look at new releases. And I remember those years because there was this jump. It was a few books were coming out with werewolves very early on, and then boom, a switch was flipped. And I remember there being a bunch, and I remember them all looking kind of the same. And I was like, oh no, they recognize it as a fad, and now they're just cranking them out. They're not really like, it's not a passion project of the authors anymore. It's just in order for these larger companies to cash in on a fad. And that was sad to see. Because it did start out with a few good writers started it, I think.
Right. Well, and that's like all of the new vampire books after Twilight, or at least the vampire romance ones, because there were a ton of vampire books before Twilight, but then like after Twilight, it was like, well, more on the romance side. I think the other ones were more like horror books, not really romance centered.
If anyone likes werewolves, well, she crosses over into werewolf territory sometimes. There is a content creator on YouTube that I've followed for forever, who she focuses on vampire content, and that's all she does. And she goes from really classic vampire classics, like really old books most people don't even know about, like the beginning of the genre, all the way through to modern stuff. And it does it in a literary manner. She works as if she's like a literary student going through it. I love that kind of stuff. It's very deep analysis. It's really cool. So if you like that kind of stuff, and of course it crisscrosses with werewolf occasionally, because the two tend to meet quite a lot. It's kind of interesting, because I kind of wonder why that is. I bet there's somewhere on her channel she's got a video where she talks about why it's werewolves and vampires, not like vampires and something else, like vampires and mermaids or something. Like why werewolves? I'm thinking it has to do with like where a lot of those kind of mythologies started, probably. But
I think so. I mean, I think in the same lore of vampires and werewolves were always kind of looped together, because they were predators of the other one. Like werewolves were the night and the moon, and then vampires with the sun. So they were like polar opposites and natural enemies. So that, I think that's why. I mean, I could be wrong, but that was always my kind of impression to why they usually live in the same universe, but
they're also both
I don't know.
creatures, so
Right, yeah, because they do change at night, but I don't know. And that would be a really interesting question to try to find out. Here's another comment about. Oh yeah, not Liv says. I have no desire to crank out the same old cliche vampires love stories. That's good. I feel like.
There we go.
Yeah, that's important because I feel like a lot of us with our art, if we're writing in these types of genres and everything, like we have to put our own spin on it because we don't want to do the same thing, but we do want to use our imaginations. And if our imaginations are drawn towards those types of stories, in order to stand out or get published, or if you're publishing by yourself too, like be able to stand apart from all the other ones that are out there. And I think it's even harder for the paranormal romance genres now.
I feel like people who write paranormal romance have it really rough right now because the market is oversaturated, which I'm sure you know, you're right there. You're like, oh God, like I'm sure promoting your stuff is a nightmare because like you're competing with a lot of people who are just like creating that stuff for the fad reasons, and they're really not doing anything unique. It's just the same old formula over and over. So convincing people that you're like, no, I swear I'm doing something a little different. That's got to be a really, really rough ride right now because there's so many people on the boat, and trying to get your voice heard has got to be horrendously difficult right now. I can't imagine. So Godspeed. That's a lot. But Billy just said, Liv is a master market. That's awesome. That's good. I feel like you have to be like
shouldn't be a problem for you then.
To get that to work in that genre, it's got to be really rough to compete. Oh God. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out. Oh, there we go. So my book is a science fiction and fantasy combination, dark fantasy combination. So it is about creatures who are interdimensional, and a pilot just kind of runs into them, essentially. They were sent on a mission to investigate a satellite or something very large that hit sensors from their colony, but they don't know what it is. So they're sent out to investigate what it is, and if there are people on board that need rescuing because the radio comm is silent, and they end up running into, kind of dipping into this other realm. And there is one survivor left, and they have to get that survivor out of this other world. And the interdimensional creatures aren't fully good, aren't fully evil. They're kind of their own thing, and so they have to kind of negotiate to kind of figure out what these creatures want, what they need. It's interesting because the world that these creatures operate in is the mental realm. So it's a lot of whatever fears and trauma and anxiety and dreams you have, they end up manifested and real in this other realm. So it's very much like the introspection of the characters, heavy on that. So understanding the characters' wants and needs has been vital to me in this book. I cannot avoid that. I have to address it. And it does take, like the world itself kind of takes on almost a very dark version of kind of Wonderland kind of esque, because one of the characters, the survivor, she very much loves Wonderland in that story. When she was growing up, she would read it a lot as a kid. So that's what the aliens kind of pulled from. They just saw that dream in her head and they were just like, we'll just use that. That's fine. And they just pulled that. But it's a very like warped version of it because these are aliens. They don't know how to make anything realistic or real. So it's very interesting to be writing. And I'm really kind of excited to get into a little bit more of the description that I wasn't able to do before, because it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very alien and very strange. And I'm very excited to do it. So that's kind of what mine is. And I really don't know. I don't have a clue how I'm going to market it. I have no clue. I'm not even thinking about it right now. Honestly, I just need this thing to work and to run before I can think about leaping over mountains here. So
I get that.
Everest. Hi. Hi, Everest. I recognize, I think, everybody in here, which is so cool to see. It's so cool to be seeing you guys live. Yeah, hey, Everest, we were just talking about current projects we're working on and what they are. So if you want to share any current projects you're working on, we would love to hear about it. But yeah, so that's where we all are right now for editing. Haley and me are kind of on the same page, but in different places of that same page. We're both working on outline and trying to get that to make sense and flow well so we can get some progress done on revision. So I would like to hear a little bit more, because Haley, your phases, how you're going to do it, is quite different from mine, which I'm excited about. I love it when people make some changes. So I kind of want to hear about, like, knowing what we know now, where we are right now with our goals and how far we've progressed. How do you think the next section is going to go for you? Have you altered kind of your plans of, like, what you're going to be doing when? Like, what's that look like right now?
So I've altered it a little bit since in January I didn't completely finish my re-outlining stuff for the book. So I think I'm going to continue it through, and by I should look at my calendar, actually.
Yeah,
I'm just
I
gonna
know.
bring it up on my laptop quick.
A new month, so it's weird.
Yeah. I'm like, I still can't believe it's the 30th already. So I'm looking at just taking like another week to finish out, because I do want to finish the mice outlines for all of my characters, and then I do still want to read up until the point that I left off before I really start writing. But I'm gonna be starting some like after work writing streams on my channel Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I'm hoping that will really help me like put in extra time during the work week, because I've been doing most of my outlining stuff on weekends. It has just been too hard with the teaching schedule and everything during the week. So now I'm gonna force myself to try. But we'll see how it goes, I guess. So I want to start actually writing by the 7th if I can, and then through March 7th, I think, because then that week I'm leaving for Georgia, because I am driving down there for my friend who's getting married. So I'm standing in his wedding, and I need to drive to save money. So it's gonna be a long trip, and then that's just about when you were gonna have the whole thing end. So that's my goal, to at least get through the phase 2 portion, which for me would look like actually finishing the 3rd draft of the book. So doing all of the rewrites for the scenes that I haven't finished yet. So it'll probably be about 40,000 words that I need to write. So it'll be it'll be a lot, but that's my goal, is to try to get that as close to done as possible. And I'll take it with me too. Like if I don't finish, then I'll continue it on my trip to Georgia as well and try to finish it by the time that I get back. So we'll see how that goes, because it's just going to be a lot of driving. So maybe I'll try some like auto dictate something, or I don't know. We'll experiment with some stuff.
If you're able to record, like when you're done with a scene, record yourself reading it out loud. You can then listen to that on your road trip.
Ooh.
And you can kind of edit on the road in a way. It's an idea. Yeah. Because you need audibles, essentially.
Right? Oh my gosh, true that. That would be fun, actually, to listen like of an audible version of my book while I'm driving.
I actually have heard of some people kind of doing that, where they like hire someone, like a voice actor, on one of those sites to like read their draft out loud, and it's just for them, so they can then edit it, because it's not only it's in a voice, but it's in somebody else's voice, so it really like completely jars your brain, and it helps you edit quite a lot. I mean, you have to pay for it, so it could be expensive, but Like, if you've got the moolah and it's something that you really want to invest in, I think that's probably actually a really good trick, because that would distance you enough from the writing, because it's in someone else's voice. It distances you a little bit, and you probably will hear it and perceive it very differently than you do when you read it in your voice. So, you know, but the cheap version is reading it out loud to yourself and just creating an audio file on your phone or something.
Yeah.
That's the cheap version. That's probably what I'm going to be doing, to be honest with you. I'm trying to save that money for editors, because I know that's going to kick my butt.
Editors are really expensive, so I don't blame you.
But at the same time, like, that's their pay too. Like,
right,
you know,
yeah.
depending on how intense of an editing experience you need, like, I think they deserve the money. That's one. There are lots of fields that I question how much money they make. That's not one of them. I do not question how much editors make. I really don't. Because I've edited for other people before. I'm gonna tell you some of the work that goes into that. Oh my God. So yeah, it's legit. It's legit for sure. But it does mean, from the writer's perspective, it's like, I'm gonna save up how much overtime do I need to pull for this.
Well, and my first draft was 600 pages, and so this third draft, I'm hoping to get it to 500 pages. So I still have like about 150 pages to go. That's where I'm kind of like about that 40,000 word mark, here and there, because I might add some scenes, might delete some scenes still. But yeah, so it would be really expensive at 3 cents a word for
Some will do
I can't even.
Yeah, some do by page. But yeah, it adds up really, really fast. So if you're talking about like around 400, 500 pages, even if it was $1 a page, you're looking at a car payment, a pretty decent sized car payment right there. And that's like maybe the cheaper end for a lot of editors. For most editors, it's going to be a little bit more than that, about $1.50 to $2 a page. So it adds up very fast. You're looking at almost $1,000 for an editor. Just one round of an editor. So yeah, it's a lot, but is what it is. Everest did say what she was. Here we go. I had to find the comment, scroll back a little bit. Dystopian stuff, yes. Yeah, Everest works with a series. I believe it's a series, right? Yes, post-apocalyptic series. So it's multiple books. Once again, I can't imagine doing a series. I really can't. I actually do have one book that's supposed to become a series, and it's on back burner. I'm terrified. That project terrifies me. I'm excited about it, but like the kind of excited that I'm like, am I talented enough for this? I don't know really. Like this, it's a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like I would need to like become superhuman at my organization skills before I even want to try tackling that series, especially considering that it's part sci-fi, because most of my stuff is sci-fi element to it. So there are other worlds, there are alternate worlds, interdimensional worlds, and then there are colonies and satellites and stuff. So I have to keep all of that straight. And that's just the world building itself. That doesn't even come close to how big the cast is. So I'm scared. I'm scared of that project. So I haven't touched it in like 5 years.
Oh my gosh.
So,
I mean, I feel you there. Like this book, like in the last outline, like it led up to a point where I was like, this would be the start to a series, because it was still so unresolved at the end. And thankfully with this rewrite, like I think it can stand alone. But for a while I was like, oh shoot, I might need another book or two for this one. And which like thought. I mean, the world is so big that I could turn it into a series if I wanted to. Like there's so much else that could happen, because there's multiple realms and all this other stuff. It's dystopian fantasy. So, I mean, there's really anything I could do with it. I could, if I wanted to. But yeah, no, I feel you. I'm like, I'm not in a stage in my writing to tackle a series right now. Like I need to focus on just finishing it and like being able to produce like a good book, and then maybe down the line I could do something that would be a series. But yeah, I also can't imagine all of the planning that goes into it. So I mean, I feel like I'm learning a lot about planning through this book, though. Like, I feel like I could down the line.
You gotta walk before you run, and I think it's really important to have. I would think, and this is just, you know, you don't have to do this, but I would think if you wanted to try to ease yourself into it, I would think you'd want to start with single standalone books first. Maybe publish one or two of those first before you even try making a series. Because I feel like you learn so much going through the process of those single books that you get better and better at organizing. And so when you do tackle those series, you're going to have better tools at your disposal that you've been using already for a while. So it'll be a little easier. For people who just jump right into series, I can't imagine. Like, that must be so stressful because you're trying to learn how to just do just basic stuff like editing an entire novel versus a short form story. Like, you're doing all of that, but you're doing it on a giant scale. I can't imagine that much stuff in my head. My head's already crowded. I don't need more. Oh my God. Liv mentions, I have actually used this site. So, this site is actually really good. I've used it before. I haven't gotten my own stuff edited, but I'm pretty sure I've edited some other people's stuff on here, on this site. So, this site is kind of like, I would consider this kind of a critiquing site. I wouldn't consider this editing. Just simply because I do think there's a big difference between beta readers and editors. That being said, there are some critiquers and beta editors that are very, very good, and they come close to almost being an editor. But it is not quite the same process. But this is a really good one to do to try to get your stuff as good as it can be. So when you do go for a professional editor, the professional editor is catching the really small stuff. The stuff that they're good at catching, the stuff that the beta editors couldn't catch. Because, like, think about it in terms of, like, cleaning your house. You know, you vacuum up all the big stuff, or you pick up the big stuff before you go for the detail cleaning stuff. So, like, I feel like these kind of sites are great for picking up all of the obvious trash that's all over the floor that needs to be cleaned up. And also picking up some of the trash that you didn't recognize as trash. But then when it gets to the really detailed stuff, like in the tiny cracks and crevices, I think that's when you pull out the big guns, the paid editors. But like, places like this are fantastic for cleaning up your stuff enough to get to a point where it needs the detail work. So I do recommend places like this. I've used it before. They're great. I think they work best for short stories because you don't need as many points or something. I haven't used it in a while. I don't think you need as many points to get like short form done. But if you want to do an entire novel, upload an entire novel, you have to like get a lot of points. So you have to do a lot of other people's stuff before you have enough points where you can upload a full novel. So you need to go through a lot of critiquing for others first. So if you plan it out, like that's actually something I need to be doing again. I need to start editing other people's stuff to incur points. I haven't done that yet. I need to start.
I hadn't even heard of Scribiophile before.
Yeah, they've been around a while.
Yeah, they've been around super interesting.
Yeah, if they were newer, I'd be a little bit, unsure of them, but they've got long standing in the community. I remember using them back in college. So they're nice. Solid. They're a solid one. I would recommend, this is a serious recommendation, would recommend to anyone looking for critiques of their story. Again, you do have to edit other people's stuff to get points. And once you get enough of those points, then you can upload your own stuff. So if you do want to upload a giant thing like a novel, you are going to need to edit a lot of other people's stuff first to have the rights to do that, which makes sense. It's tit for tat, But yeah, it's solid. That's a good recommendation. Thank you for bringing it up, Liv, because I probably would have forgotten, and that's solid. That is a solid one.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it up. I hadn't even heard of it before, so
Yeah,
it
I thought
sounds
everyone
really
knew about it,
interesting.
but
I love it.
not everyone knows. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's super cool. I love that there's something like that out there. Sweet. Shall we go on to our next talking point, Corey?
Yes. So our next point. So we've already like looked over like how our view of our projects have changed. For me, I already mentioned I'm probably going to be doing the outlining while I'm doing the editing, so I'm just going to go scene by scene. So that's an alteration from what I originally was going to be doing, and that affects future plans. But what are fears about the project? Let's actually jump to that question because I feel like that one should be pretty interesting. Fears about your project. Do you have any? What are they?
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like I'm making a bigger mess.
It's always what cleaning feels like. It always feels like it gets worse before it gets better.
It's so true. It's so true. Yeah, I just, especially when I had all my note cards out on my floor, like in my last vlog, and I was just like trying to sort through them and just like, oh my gosh, I was just, yeah. I feel like a lot of my fear is also just like, I've been working on this book for so long, like, is it going in the right direction? And I think that part of it has really been holding me back, because I feel like once I get the inspiration or I know exactly where I'm going, then I'm gonna springboard and I'll be able to just like keep going. But I think because so many things have changed, and a lot of what I had written during NaNoWriMo, like at least towards the end, that part like really messed up my whole like idea of where this book was gonna go. And so I think it's just a matter of a lot of backtracking and changing my mindset about where my characters like actually want to go and want to end up. And I actually really like my new ending like so much better than the old one that I had an idea for. So like I'm really excited for that, but it's just this kind of like muddled middle where I'm still trying to like piece together exactly how we're going to get there. And so I think a part of it too is just like working a lot and not devoting the time to it, because I think if I can just sit down and like have like a full couple of days of just pure just novel devoted only, then I feel like that would help push me forward like over the bridge a little bit. But right now, like I'm not in a super great position in order to devote that time to it, which I think is both hindering procrastination because I'm worried about when I get there to that point, or like sitting down and then being like, oh, I can't like go, I can't like switch my mind off of it and like go back to work and all that kind of stuff. So that's probably my biggest hindrance as of right now. What about you?
That's definitely a fear of like when you put that much time into a particular project, there is this major fear of, if I can't get this workable, what if I can't complete it? What if I can't get this off the ground? Then I've just wasted the last 5 years of my life. And it's really hard to get, it's major fear, because that creates the anxiety that you've now attached to the project. And like, I totally get that, because there have been times when I've been like, what if I'm just spinning my wheels on this and like, it won't even matter? Like, you know, I put in so much time, so much effort, maybe even a ton of money too, if I do get to the professional editing phase, and then like turns to find out there's no market for it right now. Like the market's not there. It doesn't exist. You know, there's always that fear, and that's always going to be there. And honestly, like I think when it comes to stuff like fear of like, am I wasting my time? Am I able to complete it? One of the best things that I've been able to do is just not think about the project as a collective whole, but rather just think about, okay, I'm going to complete this one chapter. I'm not thinking about literally any other chapter. I'm just thinking about this one chapter. My goal is this chapter, nothing else. And with all the noise, like for you, you're really in the thick of it, because you have the first part like of a new draft completed, but you're still trying to write the later part of that draft, which I think is the harder part to write.
Yeah.
Like, because that's the tying up the loose ends part, and it's really rough. But the good part is you did have that rewrite for the first part, and you're doing mice, so you're trying to see like where's the mirror. So hopefully the idea is, if you understand that first part and what you set up in the first part, now you know what you need to complete in the last part, in theory.
Yeah.
I think the thing of it is having the time to sit down and actually like just brainstorm and just do that pre-write, because you got that, like you said, you have that feeling like I want to get to the next part. I want to, fix the next part, but you really need to completely stop yourself altogether, pull away, sit down with a piece of scrap paper and just brainstorm and just problem solve. And I think that part of the writing process just is never talked about very much. I think it's glossed over a lot, maybe because it's not very glamorous. It's taking a piece of paper, whatever you have in your area, and a paper, pen, highlighters, whatever's around you, and just scribbling and trying to figure out, okay, if A plus B equals C, then how do I get over here? And it's stuff that doesn't really end up in the novel strictly. It's all, meta text, but it's vital for you figuring out where you're supposed to be going in the first place. And I think because we don't see other writers doing that very much, like you always see other writers just writing. They're just writing a draft, or they're rewriting that draft. You don't see them sitting down with scrap paper and brainstorming. It's the most unglamorous. I think some people even think it's lame, because it's like, you're not really writing. You're not really writing. Maybe you're procrastinating. It's like, well, no, I'm trying to figure out how to solve the mess I just made.
Right.
But it makes you feel guilty, because just like if you're cleaning your house, if you take that step back and you try to plan out how you're going to clean it. I don't know about you, but I kind of get that anxious feeling like the longer I take trying to figure out how I'm going to do a task, the more I feel like I'm wasting my time.
Oh yeah, definitely. That is me all the
jump in and I start cleaning, and I clean it in the wrong order. Like I'll start cleaning the bathroom being like, okay, I'm getting somewhere. I'm cleaning the tub. And then I look up and I see the vent and I'm like, oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't clean that vent. And cleaning that vent means stuff is going to come right down on the places I just cleaned. So if I'd stepped back, thought about it for a minute, really took stock in the space first, I would have realized the vent needs to be the first thing I do. Then I can clean the tub underneath the vent. But, not stepping back is kind of part of the problem. And when sometimes, like, I don't want to pass judgment, because I don't know what other people's process is intimately. I just know what people post. And usually what people post is that rewriting phase. Because that's what when you think of a writer, you see someone hunched over a computer or a typewriter. You don't think of someone sitting there like this. Like you don't see that part of the process. It's a boring part of the process. And so people don't talk about it. And so I think a lot of writers feel like what the normal thing is to just jump in and rewrite. And so they feel that like they have to be doing that. And so they don't step back and think about it first. And so then you get a lot of writers where you and me have talked about this privately, where they're in draft 15. They've rewritten the thing from start to finish 15 times. And sometimes it needs that. If you got a really complicated story, sometimes that's just how the cookie crumbles. But you got to wonder if this person had taken the time to step back and critically thought about the project and just brainstormed, they might have been able to just take care of some of those problems before they sat down to write. But they didn't give themselves the space to do that.
Right.
Maybe out of guilt, maybe because they didn't know they could, or it's not talked about at all. And it's such a shame, because I feel like for me, I'm not an outliner, by the way. I think some people watching this stream might think I am, because I'm talking about planning so much. I'm really not. I think the thing is, how we see an outline too can sometimes be overly rigid. An outline really is just knowing where you're going next. And for different people, that's going to look very different. So like an outline to Haley is naturally going to be looking very different from my outline, because what cues her to understand what's needed next is different from what cues my brain. And that's normal. I think while we do need structure, I think some people are intimidated by the idea of structure because they think the structure has to look a particular way. And that's not true.
Yeah, that whole like formula thing.
Yeah, it can look so different. Everyone's formula to their brain is different, and that's okay. For some people, they need the very rigorous structure of like mice or something like that, that's very like kind of code in a way. For some people, they use that to kind of problem solve, but it might not be something they strictly hold to. For other people, it's a scrap piece of paper, and it's just basic, like a list, like a checklist. Like, I'm doing this scene and this happens. I do this scene and this happens. Like, everyone's a little different in how their brain compiles that information and processes it. So but I do think it's vital, regardless of whether or not you outline, when you're doing revision, to give yourself time to pre-write and to not look down on that or to feel like you're not doing anything. The pre-write phase, I think, is actually more critical sometimes than the writing phase in some ways, because if you didn't pre-write effectively, you're going to be doing that rewrite quadruple the time, because you're trying to pre-write and write simultaneously, and that does not work as well as I think people think it does.
Right.
Like,
well, isn't that kind of like that concept of the whole zero draft thing, is some of that pre-writing stuff going in where they're not like writing, they're writing just like that detailed kind of, not an outline, but like a very, very rough kind of scene by scene layout of what they want to happen. And like, I think for like, to go back another step, like for me in particular, like a reason that my book is such a mess and taking as long as it is because like I didn't know the benefits of figuring out like what I wanted from the beginner. And I don't really consider myself like a huge like outliner. Like I outline pretty minimally. Like I still want to leave room for things to change and like all of that stuff. Like I want my imagination to run wild. Like I don't want it to like be stagnant, but at the same time, like my world and my characters are so big that if I don't like have something, and that's why this was a mess, because I wrote the first 6 chapters of this book like my first summer out of high school, without anything, just discovering it. And then I was at a standstill for a really long time. And then I had to go in and outline the rest of it because it was just so big and I had so many characters that there was really like no way that my brain could just function without that. But I love that idea of just like having that brainstorming moment. And I've done a little bit of that with just like kind of free writing out what I think should happen here or there. Especially as I was going in through my note carding phase. Because this was my original outline that I printed and I cut it up and then I pasted it on the note cards so that I could see it all. So I could do that step back process that you were talking about, if I can see it all before me. And I mean, honestly, that made me feel so much better, just being able to see every little piece of the puzzle. Whereas before I was just getting really overwhelmed about like just staring at a screen and being like, I don't see where this is going. Like one step into the next, I'm kind of like, it's not quite lining up for me. So like getting that physical paper and all of that stuff seems to be really helping me now at this phase. So we'll see what comes of it, I guess.
Yeah, but I feel you on that like anxiety of like, am I doing enough for this? Like, am I getting as far as I want to get, as fast as I want to get? And that feeling of like, I've already been doing this for multiple years. I don't want to be stuck. Like, and that's kind of like why I've created the system I did, that's kind of accelerated. And that's why I'm worried about this next phase coming up. I'm so worried about phase 2 because I feel like I'm going too fast and I'm probably going to have to slow down. Like, to be very realistic, I'm not, I don't want to make a self-fulfilling prophecy, but I feel like I bit off way more than I can chew in terms of like how much I can realistically do within 3 weeks while full-time employed as a teacher.
Yeah.
I feel like that it's really rough. I don't think it's impossible, but I do think I've set myself up for a lot. And considering I will have overtime, I just found out recently I'm going to have overtime, required overtime this coming month. So it's a lot. I've set myself up for a lot, and I do think I'll get some stuff done. It's just a matter of how much. And like I was saying, there's that feeling like you have to rush it. Like you feel like you have to complete things or it wasn't worth it, or people judge you and say, see, you didn't really do it. You didn't really complete it. Like, and it's kind of hard. But I don't know. I think we definitely need to give ourselves the spaces to think and to not feel like we have to be physically writing 24/7, because that's not going to do anything if we didn't put the pre-writing time into it. And that sometimes that means just not writing that day and just sitting back with a notebook and just scribbling and trying to figure something out. And it's really hard to allow yourself space to do that. But I think that's going to be really vital to getting through these phases. And so phase 2 might take longer than anticipated because of that. We'll see. I definitely am going to be ending M.E.L in the spot I am because I literally have to. I have other stuff going on in real life. Contract for work and stuff like that happens around April here, end of March, early April. So like I kind of have to take somewhat of a break from editing at some point. But as far as like how long I'm going to be in revision process, I don't know. I guess we're going to have to find out, see how much I can do within a given week. I've honestly never done a project this huge before. I truly have no idea how much time to schedule for this. I have no concept. And, Haley, you've been doing this, for a while now, and you still struggle with it too. It's so hard to say how much time it's going to take you to do that rewrite portion. It's like question mark. There's no way to figure out how long it's going to take you. So I think that's kind of like the biggest fear and struggle right now is like, how long is this going to take? Like you have no idea how long this step is going to take. So you're just kind of like, try to get as much done as I can today. And that's like the only goal you can set for yourself is like, okay, just try to do chapter 1, but then chapter 1 takes 2 weeks. Like you have no concept for how long this is going to take you. So,
and I think for me too, I feel like it's also like a fear of finishing it. Like, I feel like the fact that I'm closing in on finishing it again, even though like I haven't touched it since NaNoWriMo really, just because of where I left off and needing to take that step back. And I just haven't had the time to with full-time teaching myself, with long-term subbing. And it's just like, I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like also because it's just been going on, it's been a constant in my life for almost a year now of picking this book up and then putting it down and then picking it up and then putting it down. The fact that I want to get it done by April, I don't know. I think that's also like the fear of finishing it is like a huge component as well that like prompts procrastination. And it's like, because I mean, I think like we could find the time if we really, really tried to, but it's like after teaching, like you're just so tired at after school. And it's just like, and I know like you work nights too, right? So it's just like, it's different for you as well, where I get home and I'm tired, which is why I'm trying to do my 3-day week streams for February at least, because then I can at least force myself by pretending people are going to show up.
And sometimes I'm able to make it. Sometimes
you do.
We'll see.
It's in the morning for you, so.
Yeah, it's early morning for me. Sometimes, like some of your streams are like 5 a.m. to me, and I'm like, I mean, I can, but then I'm like up until like almost midnight working. So
no, it's hard. I do not blame you. I think these ones should be at 8 8 a.m. your time.
Yes.
I think.
So I might be able to show up to the
So
first
still-
February stream you got going on.
Still early, but not like terrible.
Yeah, and I
terribly early.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. It's always like touch and go for like how exhausted I am or if I feel well enough. And that's what makes like I try to plan out my stuff so most of my work happens on weekends for me because I can't count on having the energy during the work week. I can't depend on that. So I have to make my goals reachable with weekend like write-a-thons essentially. And depending on those. So my weekends have to be productive. But that then puts a lot of pressure on my weekends. And if I overwork, I end up burnt out before I've even started the work week. And so finding that work-life balance with this is nearly impossible. It's really rough to do. So yeah. I think we've got some comments, some questions.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, Billy's taking it slow, it looks like, and hasn't quite started phase 1, but is excited to start. That's awesome. Please take it as slow as you need. I did not put dates of how long the phases are on my blog because I have a blog readout of every single phase as well as questions you can use. And I didn't put dates on that for a reason. Take it as slow as you need. I am doing it at a particular speed because I do have a real life schedule to also adhere to. But we'll see how that works out. Yeah, I want people to take as long as they need and also bump between the phases as much as you want. Like it's just somewhat of a structure. So you can have some kind of structure to what you're doing. Because I needed that. And if it works for you, cool. If it doesn't, also cool. It's, whatever works. I think Liv asks, do you guys have a favorite book on the craft of writing? I actually do, and almost no one's heard of it, but I read this. We used to have, in college, we had a little writer's house, which they tore down when I graduated. When I graduated, they bulldozed it on my graduation.
God.
This was a clear sign. I'm never coming back. This university is dead to me. But anyway.
I'm literally tearing up right now, Corey.
It was a little cottage. It was a cottage on campus with a writer's library. We had a library of reference books that writers had access to, and it was a little cottage with a garden. We had a rose garden, and they bulldozed it.
Why the fuck did they do that?
They hated the writing. They hated the art and English department. They wanted to be a business school, and so they were killing all of our programs for English. So I'm pretty sure their English program has almost entirely been sliced into almost nothing now.
Oh my God.
It's a joke. They used to have a Writing Pacific program. I don't know if that's still around. So yeah, they pretty much killed it. But one of the first reference books I read from that little library that I think I have a copy of it in the States, but I don't have a copy here in Japan. I need to get one. It's so good. It's called Getting into Character, 7 Secrets a Novelist Can Learn from Actors. And the book is by Bradley Collins. And this is by someone who is a screenwriter. And pretty much she took the idea of method acting that actors use to get into characters and reversed the process. Because for us, we're trying to create the character. For an actor, they have the character already created and they have to get inside that and go back to find the heart of the character. For us, we build the heart of the character and work out. So it's a reverse of that process. It's really, really great. It focuses on character, and character is the centralized part of your entire book. So I love that as a reference. It's really good. It has some fantastic writing exercises in it. So if you struggle with characters or you're really worried about that aspect of your books, I cannot stress enough how good that one is. When this stream is done, I'll go ahead and put this in the comments too, so it's easier to like click and paste, search for it. So I'll go ahead and get that. I'll also type it into the comments for y'all in just a second here. But I think we had some other, like another question somewhere. Oh, Billy was just asking about my teaching. I teach in Japan. I teach English. Most people who live in Japan who are foreigners are English teachers. It's very difficult to get any kind of visa outside of that job. So it's not impossible, just very difficult. I took Japanese in college. I also have some personal reasons for being here. I have one or two friends who are here, living here, and also I love marine biology. This is something you guys don't hear me talk about almost at all in my channel. It's not really the right space for it, but that's one of my big inspirations for a lot of my aliens are deep sea creatures, deep sea biology. I've been a lover of deep sea oceanography since I was a child. I used to actually think I was going to be a marine biologist. And then I found out chemistry is something you really need to understand. And I hated chemistry, so that was not going to happen. So instead I became a writer, and my creepy creatures in the ocean are a very big part of the inspirational phase. So yeah, Japan has amazing deep sea research. So that's one of the major reasons why I fell in love in Japan in the early days. So yeah, that's why. But yeah, Everest, she says that, yeah, biggest struggle as an author, never know what the schedule is going to look like. It is so hard to figure out how much time we need to give different elements of the writing process. It's like, and I feel like all artists struggle with this, but I feel like for us, it's a little bit more so because a lot of our craft is mental. It's like the type portion is easy compared to the mental gymnastics. And you can't really say, you can't put a timestamp on that. Like, how long does it take you to come up with an idea? Well, depends on how good my brain is going today. Like, some days are far better than others, and my brain's a locomotive and we're going good. Other days I feel like I'm riding a tricycle with flip-flops. Like, I don't know, like, it's taking me forever to cross the street. So, and if you've got a full-time job, which I feel like a lot of authors do, it's very rare for me to run into authors who this is their full-time job is writing, because it's very difficult to get money that way. I feel like most of the people I know who have that, they're married and their significant other pays a lot of the bills. Because, and it's sad to say that, but like that's just the way it is, unfortunately. For most of us who are single writers, we're working full-time jobs. And as Haley has already stated, we're both teachers, both of us, although Haley is in the States, I'm in Japan. But the struggle is still the same. Being a teacher is insanely draining. It drains not only your physical resources, but also your mental. And that's the real problem. Our brains are mush after a shift. Trying to think after a shift is so hard. And, so while it's not impossible to do, you can do it. It's very painful and you get a lot of burnout. Burnout is really common. So,
and I've been applying to grad schools right now too.
Oh my God, really? Oh.
So all of my mental energy after school has been going to writing personal essays and filling out applications and revising my portfolios and stuff, which is another reason why I fell so behind in January, because I had 2 applications due in January and I had 3 applications due in December. And so it's just been basically like the months since NaNoWriMo that I was saying, like, I haven't really done much with my novel. It's also because of that as well. And I still have 3 more schools to apply to that are on my list. 1 more in the States and then 2 abroad that don't have like concrete deadlines. So I'm trying to wait and see. I'm going to apply to all the ones in the States first, and then should start hearing back mid-February from the first one, I think.
Mid-February.
Yeah, mid-February. And then the rest.
February's going to be busy. I'm saying it now. February's going to be a thing.
Yeah.
A thing. Get ready. Take a deep breath. Oh, God.
So it's just like balancing school and applications and the book.
The work-life balance is just insane. And I can't imagine applying for grad school at the same time. Everest said deep sea Japan is truly, yes, great place to research. Live. Oh my gosh, don't get me started on the lakes. Yeah, man. The lakes actually make me kind of sad. I remember visiting them when I was really, really young. I have family that lives up in Ohio. So I remember visiting Ohio as a kid. And I remember two memories. One when I was very little and the lakes were really kind of clear, you could see through them. And then the last time I visited them when I was way older, I was an adult. They were murky and there were dead fish washed ashore because all of the nuclear power plants close by had been pumping stuff. And it was just polluting the area. And I remember the vast difference in pollution between those years. I think they've been trying to do conservation over the last couple years. There have been some serious rules, so I think they're getting better. I heard that the ecosystem is recovering. I pray that's right.
I think it is. I think it depends on where you are. Because for me, I'm by Lake Michigan. I'm in Wisconsin, so like.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so I'm right on Lake Michigan, or like close to. I'm in Green Bay. When I'm in Milwaukee, I'm closer. But yeah, so like when I was a kid in like high school and stuff, the lake got so polluted. Like you could see dead fish floating all the time. Like the water was basically green, gray color because of all the factories that were along the lake. And in the last few years, like it's blue now. And it's like, it's still like tentative because like you were always told like you can't swim in Lake Michigan. Like, and we still would sometimes, but it's like there was so, because like what else are you going to do on a hot summer day? But, and the water was also really cool. Cold. I mean, cold.
Yeah, it's freezing water.
It's freezing. But like I always really liked it. But it depended on where you were, because like in certain areas, like you would see the trash all over. You would have like the little area stretch of beach with all of the dead fish from the pollution that just like washed up on the shore and all this stuff. And yeah, so I mean, I love the lake, but it is definitely it's improving. Like within the years that even then when I was, because let's see, what year was that? Probably, I don't know, maybe 2012, 2013. And then like as I was leaving middle school and then my high school years and then, yeah. But anyways, within the last like maybe 5 years since I graduated, that it's been getting better. But
that's good.
Yeah. Wow. Where are you live? I'm curious because you mentioned Lake Superior.
Yeah, it looks like they know. Well, she was researching Lake Superior.
Oh, researching Lake Superior. I was like, because I've been there too, and Lake Superior is also really
the
pretty.
Great Lakes are so polluted. Indiana is now the nation's most polluted state. I can believe that. I can believe that. I have family all up east, and yeah, Ohio. I think it's really sad because there's some gorgeous places in places like Ohio, but like I feel like just the pollution because of like some of the cities there it's just so bad. Everett mentioned writers are just naturally attracted to being teachers. I think it just has to do with job industry. Because and this is not to say that I hate my job or I love my students. I would take a bullet for them. I really would. But if I had a choice between being a teacher and being able to make money off of my art, guess what I would choose? I would make money off my art. I would not be a teacher. Being a teacher is kind of where we fall into because there are no other industries for us to get into. And it pays a little bit better than part-time work, not by much, but it pays a little bit better than that. And at least it's a little bit more connected in some ways to writing because we do have proficiency in certain areas. So between this and like doing things like flipping burgers, I have more confidence in my skills as a teacher than I do in my skills of cooking, for example. So, and that is a skill. I know a lot of people talk down to part-time jobs, but that is a skill set. Being able to sell things, being able to be customer service. Customer service is a skill set. People should not look down on it at all. There is a set of skills that goes into de-escalating situations. That's a whole thing. And I was insanely depressive when I worked customer service. And
me too.
I left that industry for a reason. It would have killed me. So being a teacher, as rough as it is, as draining as it is, I have more confidence doing it than I do a lot of the other industries. And for us, I think it's just where the market is. Like, I'm positive if Haley, I'm sure, like, if there was a position in like a publishing team, I'm sure you would take that over being where you are, because it's just, this is not where we ideally want to be. It's definitely where we are because it's what's available to pay bills. Now,
and in Wisconsin, there are no publishing houses in Wisconsin. I think there's maybe like one like self-publishing company in Milwaukee, but like that's like it. Like you have to get down to Chicago or New York or San Francisco, LA area to get into any major thing like that. And like, I mean, before I became a teacher, so I graduated and then I looked into what else I could do, because I was a English and with creative writing and then a theater arts major. And so with that and with COVID and everything, there really wasn't anything available that wouldn't be at least like 5 years of writing experience or like 8 years. It was ridiculous the amount for even like basic entry level copywriting.
Oh yeah. Stuff. Yeah, so that's the thing that got me too, was the requirements. I think actually there was actually an internship that was mentioned to me, but when I actually pulled it up, the internship, unpaid internship, they wanted 3 years experience in the industry. For unpaid interns. That's got to be illegal. I swear it's got to be illegal.
Well, and there's this company I was going to apply to, like right after I graduated, Gray Wolf Press in Minnesota. But then they were doing their internships virtual. And because I decided to stay in Wisconsin and go to college in Wisconsin, like I couldn't get any publishing experience. So I did all theater internships throughout my time there, because that's what was available. And I mean, I loved it. I still love theater, but it's like writing is definitely more of my calling than the theater was. And I knew that going into it and everything was just a second passion. But anyways, they did this, and then they said no Wisconsinites allowed to apply. So I wasn't allowed to apply. It was like only people from New York, California, some like random southern state. It was.
And see, this is part of what kills actors, because then they're bullied into moving to these very expensive to live in states.
Well, and this was a publishing house. This was a publishing house.
Oh, there was a publishing house that asked that. What? Yeah. Why would they want those locations?
Well, and it's like, you want people from New York to be virtual when there's so many publishing houses in New York they could apply to. Like, allow the states that don't have any publishing stuff. Like, I don't know if I would be happy in publishing, honestly, just because of like the pace and everything too. And like you, like, I love my students. Like, I would die for my students without a doubt. But like, I don't know. We just had so much like violent issues at my school that it's like, it's a real possibility, which is a horrible thing to say, but it's true.
Yeah, it's dangerous out there. Like, I feel like I'm a lot safer here in Japan. It's pretty safe, but that being said, like, just the job itself is draining and also quite dangerous in a way, because we are front lines for, catching stuff. Right. So, and that's always been a thing. Teachers get sick all the time because of what comes in the classroom. That's always been a thing, because I've been helping out and volunteering in classrooms for, since college. Since before college. I was volunteering before college. Right. So yeah, that's always been a thing, unfortunately. Everest publishing is straight up abusive. They don't pay their interns. And they're gutting other staff. Yes, this is a major problem. Some publishing houses that are just starting are trying to fix this. There are some people that are in the industry trying to change it from inside, but it's rough because they're up against big houses, which are giant corporations at this point. And there's some evil stuff that goes behind closed doors. And that's actually part of why M.E.L exists, actually, is because a lot of this middle part of the process of writing is not talked about. And that is intentional. There's a reason why you do not hear big house publishers disclosing how that part of the process works. They do not want people to talk about it. They do not want self-publishing to become as well done, and they don't want to become quality, because then it's competition with Big House. Big House wants to be the best quality out there, because then they have the market. And one of the ways they do that is by straight up keeping behind closed doors and behind the curtain what that editing process looks like. And a lot of people think when you go to Big House Publishing that you talk to an editor and maybe an editor will go through really quick and then they publish. That is not what actually happens. Big House Publishing can be years before your stuff gets released. They take your stuff and it goes through multiple editing phases. And you don't get one editor, you have a team. And you have a main editor and they have a bunch of people working for them, be they interns or just, entry-level people. You have your stuff goes through multiple eyes. It does not go through one person. At least because as a kid, I understood that because I would listen to writers really close because I knew there was an editing process. I just didn't know what it was. And I would listen to them. And a couple people in social media, I'd hear them talking about how they were breaking their book up in discussion with their editor. And I would see that part of the process and see how intensive it was. And I'd be like, this is touching more than one person. So I kind of knew. And it was always really shocking to me when I started doing like AuthorTube, because I didn't run into AuthorTube until what year was that? I think the tail end of 2018 is when I ran into AuthorTube. Prior to that, I was on YouTube in general for years, but that was the first time I interacted with AuthorTube. And I remember being shocked about how people saw publishing. They were seeing it as a very quick process, and I was always under the impression it could take years to come out with a single book. And how fast people were coming out with stuff concerned me. It still does, by the way. Some people talk about they're writing the first draft, and then very suddenly, a couple months later, they finish the draft, and they're like, yeah, release date will be next year. And I'm like, wait, release next year? Honey, you just finished your first draft. And I'm not saying it's impossible to do that, especially because some of these people are full-time writers, to be fair. Some of these people, that is their only job. Honestly, if it's your only job, your only thing you're doing, it is possible to do it. It's harsh as hell, but it's in the realm of possibility, but it would have to be your only job.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because I feel like if I didn't have to save for grad school or anything, if I didn't have things to pay for, I would quit. I would quit teaching. I would work full time, whatever that means for different writers or whatever.
I can't even imagine what that life is like. It's so foreign to us.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't even know if I could, to be honest. I'm like, how much time would I actually spend writing if I was the full time? Because I would definitely spend a couple hours each day, but after that, I'm like, I tip out a little bit. It would have to be multiple sessions throughout the day, and I don't know. I think that would be a really interesting thing, though. Maybe this summer when I'm between teaching and grad school, I could try some of that, but I don't know. Or maybe when I'm on that retreat in Colorado, I could, because I wouldn't have a job then, technically. We'll see.
It's hard, man. Just me trying to think about I have been asked before, what are you going to be doing when you do start publishing? How is that going to work being here in Japan? And honestly, I don't have all the answers to that one. I'm kind of in a rock and a hard place on that because I have health conditions. I have a pre-existing condition. America is not the place to be with a pre-existing condition. Let me tell you. I literally can't afford my medication in the States. So I'm in a place where I really cannot be leaving Japan, but in order to retain my visa here, my right to be here, I have to keep working as a teacher. I can't stop. So I'm kind of in a rock and a hard place right now. And I'm not saying really there's no solution. I'm sure there is, but it's gonna be a trip. It's gonna be a journey. It's gonna take years for me to get any stability, and I recognize that. So yeah, it's a hard road. But But yeah, publishing is not something you should run into. Publishing is very different from writing, too. I kind of want to specify, like, because I think some people want publishing to be just as open and free as the writing process, but the reality is it's not. Anyone can be a writer. Anyone can sit down with a piece of paper, pen and pencil, computer, whatever media you want, and write a story. Anyone can craft a story. Not everyone can publish.
Yeah,
And
that's so
people don't
true.
want to hear that.
Well, and it's
But
the whole gatekeeping thing with the publishing
yeah,
industry too. Like, even if you get through the door, there's this whole thing about the marketing stuff now with having to market your own book yourself, even if you get through the door. Because if you're brand new and they don't know how you're going to sell, they're not going to invest that extra money that they might have put towards like an A-list author that they know will sell all of those books. And I'm seeing like a lot of comments coming in about like the self-publishing versus the other publishing and just the different schedules that people have. And that just reminds me of a lot of like something that I struggled with comparing myself to those types of writers who do wake up at 4 a.m. and work for 3 hours before they go to work. And I mean, if you can do that, like go do it, like good for you. Like, and but I can't. I try and I can't. Like maybe it's just because I'm not a morning person, and then when I'm done with school, I'm so tired, and so it is hard to get that motivation and get that creativity like running through and being able to produce things. But I think that there's just really negative connotation on AuthorTube specifically because there are a lot of self-published authors on this platform, which is great, but it also has this kind of like negative alter ego to it where they're publishing and they're posting things every few months or every like 6 months or something, and they're not getting it edited. And I mean, you've reviewed a lot of AuthorTube books, and we've seen what happens when you don't take the time to edit it.
And the pipeline is crazy. Yeah. And Liv just commented there are absolutely writers out there who try to pump out dozens of books a year and their quality suffers. That is a major, major issue. And I think part of it is because there is not enough discussion about the editing process. People glaze over it. They rush through it way too fast. And this is coming from someone who has a very fast schedule. So like, if I think it's fast, it's way too fast. Like, again, if it's your only job is to write books, it's not impossible to get the editing done within like 6 months. I think you could do that if that was your full job. Like you're waking up, you don't have other obligations, you don't have a family, you don't have kids. Like if you were a single person and you're just committed and hyper fixated, I think you could do it. Especially if you have editors, critique writers, whoever's helping you, if your team is also pretty fast at getting you back feed, because that's another thing. You also sometimes have to slow down because you're waiting for the feedback to come in. You're waiting on other people to complete their part of the job. Like, I don't think it's really physically possible to be pumping out multiple books a year and have those books high quality. About the only way you could do that is if you had pre-written a bunch before you started publishing and you had them all done and they were all editing. So like, well, one book is editing, you're writing the next one. Well, that phase is like, you'd have to have a conveyor belt going. And you would have had to start that conveyor belt way before you started the publishing. So you would have had to have 3 or 4 books finished and edited before you started the publishing. Then they're publishing at a quick rate because they were already finished to begin with.
Right.
That's the only way I can see that quick publishing schedule working, is if you had already completed the books. But that's not really what we're seeing. And that's not really what a lot of other like younger authors are seeing. Like young writers are coming onto YouTube and they're seeing these videos of people doing a first draft during NaNoWriMo and going from that to self-publishing. And it's concerning. Like, I love NaNoWriMo, but I don't want to slander, but I don't appreciate some of their sponsorships being self-publishing houses.
Right.
And how they pushed that immediately in December and January. I have got
like you're done with your novel. Now let's edit.
Oh no. I'm sure she'll be back. Is she back? Add stream?
Oh, there we go. Hi. Sorry, it told me my mic was disconnected for some reason as I was putting my drink down. I was like, wait, what? So I just pushed it in a little bit further. I don't know what happened, but something happened. I'm back now. That's all that matters.
Yeah, NaNoWriMo for sure. I've gotten emails from them saying, what's the next step of the process? And they're pretty much talking about self-publishing. And I'm like, wait, a rushed draft is a good start, but it is not nearly good enough for publishing. I don't think, like, the only people I can think of on the top of my head who have gone from that early of a draft to publishing were people like Ray Bradbury, who by the time he was doing that, he had already been writing and in the editing field for like 30 years before he tried that kind of stuff. He had been doing it a long time.
But a lot of these people who do it are very young writers or writers who realize like the more, because there's a thing in the strategy with self-publishing, like the more you publish and the faster that you publish, the more likely you're going to make money on it. So it doesn't necessarily matter if your story's any good. And a lot of those writers who publish like tens and tens of books each year, they use ghostwriters. Like they're not writing them. Like when I was looking at copywriting, and I looked at ghostwriting for a hot minute because my retail job at the time, like right after I graduated, was shut down because of COVID, and I didn't have a way of making money. The schools were shut down too, so I couldn't go that route yet. And I looked, and it was like people were trying to take advantage of writers who didn't have a way of making income and were offering like, we'll pay you $100 for a 50,000 word romance book and all this other stuff. And so, I mean, I am a firm believer that a lot of those books are ghostwritten. Like, I'm not going to lie, because they were like, we want one, or at least like a 30,000 book every 30 days or every 20 days or 2 weeks or whatever. And it was like ridiculous timelines and really little amount of money. And I am just like, first of all, I ain't writing for you. My writing is way better than any of that. So I am not going to even like involve myself with that. But it's amazing how many people are trying to scam other writers to write books for them.
Someone mentions, Everest mentions Wattpad uses that strategy to take advantage of children. Yes. Yes. And it's kind of crazy because we're actually in an age where we're now seeing movies and series being made after Wattpad stories. And it's a crazy time, but these are stories that never would have made it through the editing process. They never would have gotten through that because they're bad. Yeah. And they have incredibly toxic elements to them. And I'm not saying that you can't write about toxic stuff. You can, and actually probably should, but you should do it in the right way. You shouldn't glamorize it. The amount of media right now that glamorizes toxic stuff that's coming out of Wattpad is scary.
Well, and for kids too. Like I'm thinking about like my kids and like all of the stuff. Like, and I'll admit it, I read Wattpad a lot in middle school and a little bit into high school too. Like, and then I realized it was all very similar stuff and that it was like portraying abusive relationships like over and over and over again. And I was like, if people younger than me were reading that stuff and just like thinking like, oh, that's okay. And then all of a sudden they grow up and then they're reliving some of those because it was romanticized so much. Like I think about, what's it called? I don't know, but it's just like the whole like, oh, the man's going to be mean to you and that means he likes you. And with romance in particular, but I don't know. It just, it rubs me the wrong way, especially like more so after teaching. Like I think before teaching, like it made me upset But then I was like, now I picture my students reading that, and I'm like, that makes me really uncomfortable. And it's like, oh man, because I think like there's so much potential for YA and new adult to be like to teach them like the right way to live, and I think that's where that genre really needs to go. Like it's not just about entertainment at that point, because they're young enough where they're being influenced by all of these negative portrayals in social media and
but they don't realize they're young and being influenced, because I remember being in my 20s and thinking I was smart. I was not.
I'm in that phase right now.
Being a fresh-faced adult in my young 20s, I think I've got a handle on things, being 21, 22, but you are still learning. Your brain's still learning a lot of information at those young 20s are a lot more vital than people think they are, to figuring out who you are. And a lot of this stuff preys on that. Wattpad markets itself to kids and pushes the dream that you can publish a book and make millions. Kids don't know better. Yeah, and that's where I think, maybe at some point I'll do a video on this or something, but I think AuthorTube can be, certain elements of it, especially the more popular videos on AuthorTube, is straight up toxic and failing young artists.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
Because we also feed into that by having a lot of this, very much pushing self-publishing as hard as it's pushed. I'm not saying self-publishing is evil in any way. If you want to go for that, chill. And I think there are some authors that do it correctly. I actually was reached out to by a few authors for my series, and I'm reading some of their books now, and I'm finding a few, like, hope so far. I've got some hope. I'm reading some good stuff right now. I'm really excited. And these are people who are indie authors. So there's hope out there. You can do it. I'm not saying you can't do it, but it's a lot of work, and you're by yourself. You don't have a team to help you. And that's what makes the self-publishing journey, either if you ignore the fact that you need help and you just push it out anyway, you've pushed out probably something that's not the greatest. But then if you do realize that, hey, I need a team, I need help, you're going to have a really hard road, because you have to find your team. You have to find people who can help you, find people who can support you. And in some ways, you're going to have to pay some of these people too, because they're professionals, and that's going to come out of pocket. And so self-publishing is a way to give a market to people who cannot fit in the traditional market. And I think it's great and wonderful that it exists. But because it's treated so flippantly, unfortunately, a lot of very young writers are preyed upon. And like that, sorry. I almost clicked the wrong button. Scares me half to death.
You scared me with that. I was like, what happened?
I was like, the pop-up came up and I was like, no, don't end the stream yet. It tried to end the stream. I was like, no. But yeah, there's a lot of preying in the industry. Even back before AuthorTube was even a thing, back when self-publishing was first kind of getting going, there were a lot of scams. There were so many scams, and they're still there. They just hide a little better. You have to be really careful about some of this stuff. And like you guys are talking about with Wattpad very much preys on kids who have no idea. And then they'll go onto YouTube, and we're not helping. Because a lot of videos on YouTube are just about the drafting, the draft one. And and that's what these kids are doing, the draft one. So they're having fun in NaNoWriMo, they're doing this. And then when NaNoWriMo ends, it just drops off and there's no information. So they're not seeing writers come on here after NaNoWriMo and be like, hey guys, so now the real work starts. Now we're in the very unglamorous, the thing that there is no special event for, the thing that there is no fun stuff for, and you're going to be stuck in probably for years. That's not something a kid wants to hear. I'm sorry, but let's be real. When I was a teen, I did not want to hear that. Absolutely not. I just want it to be fun all the time. And I think you can make it fun, which is why I'm trying to make it fun with M.E.L. I'm trying to make this fun. But the reality is we're going to be in this time in the writing process for a little bit. And it'll vary depending on how much work there is to be done, what kind of books we're writing, and how long the book is. It varies. But like, you're going to be here for a couple months at least, if not a couple years.
Yep.
And that's the reality of writing. And it's not glamorous. But it's very necessary. And I think it's not talked about as much as it should, considering how vital it is to the writing process. And that is concerning. Like, there are so many videos about writing that first draft.
Mm-hmm.
There's almost nothing about the revision process. It's like a void. And it's so scary because that is what's being ingested by the next generation of writers.
Right.
You know, Haley and I have had the benefit of, we were able to take writing courses in college. Not everyone has that benefit. Not everyone has that ability to do that. And I would like to have spaces like YouTube, like AuthorTube, be spaces that can kind of fill in that gap for people who can't take official courses. But as it stands right now, it's not really doing that. It's not really putting that gap in there because it skips around too much. It's very much a pipeline of first draft to self-publishing. It's just a straight pipeline. And it should not look like that at all.
Well, and the people who are traditionally published and who talk about traditionally publishing, like, sometimes, like, I feel like they don't super go into depth about their whole experience either. Like, I feel like there's still this gap, and it's hard because neither of us have gotten to that point yet, so we can't fill the gap yet. But that's kind of like where our platforms are going too, is that when we get to that point, like, we'll be able to speak more on it and everything. Right. But it's going to take a while. And until then, we just kind of have to combat that misinformation, which, I mean, is so likely to happen on YouTube, social media, all of it. And I'm thinking now, like you mentioned, like those like self-publishing scams and stuff. Like, I had those like scam emails all the time when I was in high school, because I was constantly writing and working on things and trying to look up information. And at that point, there wasn't AuthorTube yet. And so like I couldn't find like basically anything. So when the things that did pop up were those scams and everything. Yeah, so there's a lot of misinformation out there still, but yeah, I don't know. It's you just got to take it day by day, and one piece of information by one piece of information, I guess. You know, the more experience you have, the more you'll be able to speak on it.
Yes, exactly. And like, that's where our channels are going. And like, Everest, I'm glad you mentioned this. I have not checked out your channel. I keep forgetting. I need to click your thing as soon as this reminder remind me. I will get to your channel. And that's the thing. The people who are doing the right thing and are talking about the revision, they're all small time creators. And that's kind of where hopefully we are going to start combating this a little bit, is the small time channels. But that's also kind of part of the problem, because like I said, it's not easy to showcase this part of the process because it is considered boring to a lot of people. I'm trying to spice it up as best I can, but the
I think you're doing a great job at that.
Thank you. I'm trying my best here. Make it entertaining, make it fun, because then we're more liable to take the time we need with it and really do it instead of giving up. But like, we really need to be in this part for quite a while, and we're hoping, the hope and the dream is that, you know, with Haley and I, we can keep going in this process. We can take you through the full revision process. And when we get to traditional publishing, like the querying and stuff like that, we can take you through that. We want to take you guys through our journeys of doing that and show you the reality of what this industry really is. But the reality is, it's a long journey. It's going to take probably years. And I think just in society in general is really just not about that. People want it very instantaneous. They want that instant burst of serotonin. And writing process is not going to give you that in the way you think. I think you can get bursts of joy, but it's very different. It's I consider it a more gradual increase. Like I truly do feel joy when I write, and I truly do feel joy over like those when you get a scene just right and you're like, oh yes, thank God.
When you read it through and you're like,
yes,
somebody else wrote this.
I fixed it. It's oh my God. Yeah, it's great. It's a great feeling, but it's very difficult to share that in a way that's entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
that's
YouTube is entertainment.
Yeah. I was just going to say, like, that's one thing that I've been struggling with my vlogs, because I feel like during NaNoWriMo and everything, my vlogs were a lot more like picking up and like more people were watching them and stuff. And then after with like all of my like revision stuff, like all of my analytics have been slowly going down. But like this is the journey that I'm on, and hopefully more people who are in similar phases will find my channel, who need my channel, and will grow slowly but surely. But like, yeah, it is kind of like one of those things where you want to be honest about your journey, and you have to find a way to make it entertaining and informative at the same time. And I mean, I think M.E.L is a great example of that. I mean, I love your scientist get up. I love the mad editor, like the mad scientist. Like when I watched your intro video for it, I was like, oh my gosh, Corey's brilliant. Like, oh, this is just mwah, like it was just beautiful. So I mean, that's one of the things that I'm still struggling with my channel is to figure out like what direction I'm going to take my channel so that it follows more in line and I can reach like the audience that I want to reach as well. Because I mean, like I said, like I've been on the rewriting revision process journey for almost a year now on my channel, and it's like it's been all consuming basically like and like I'll be starting a new book in May, and so I'll be doing that outlining process in April and stuff. So I mean, that's exciting stuff that's coming up because I'll be in Colorado for the writing in the wilderness thing. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just like
it's hard because like you get two very polarizing things from people who can consume content on AuthorTube. You got the people that want to see this whole process because they really want that meat of like, what is it like what am I looking at, what is normal as a writer, like they kind of are looking for that guiding star, but at the same time people want to be entertained. And the reality is large chunks of the writing process are not entertaining. They're hard work. And, you know, there are bits and pieces that are entertaining, and like trying to find those pieces to put online and try to also encourage, but also show a realistic view that it isn't always entertaining, and that there are stretches of you just sitting there staring at a paper trying to figure out how to solve this pit of despair you've dropped your characters into, and you're like, oh God, yeah. Like I don't have a will to live now. How am I going to get my character to want to live another day? Oh my God, like, you know, what have I done? You know,
yeah,
it's like, it's kind of funny in the aftermath, but in the point of it, when you're like in that moment, you're like, how am I sharing this with people? Like, how do I share the pit of despair? Like, I don't know, because it looks very melodramatic, but I drop my characters into a life or death situation. I have no idea how I'm getting them out. Like, you know, these are the everyday things we come across, and it's repeat. Like, and people get bored. You know, M.E.L is really interesting to people now, and I'm really glad you guys like. Thank you. I'm glad you guys like this, and that excuse me, that M.E.L is fun for you guys. But I'm going to be real. I know how the internet works. I've been doing content on the internet. I'm newer to YouTube as a content creator, but I've been making content online for over a decade. And people jump fast. So this is interesting now. Will it be interesting at the end of the year? I don't know. And I can see views on my end. I can see how my views go. And my M.E.L videos don't perform very well. This is the reality of AuthorTube, guys. You guys want the process, but you won't like or comment or share those videos, though. And unfortunately, what that says to a lot of the big time creators is it's not worth talking about then. So now we've got this vicious cycle. See, for me, I didn't join the platform to get views. So I'm going to still make M.E.L videos regardless of how they perform, because I'm making them mostly for me. Honestly, first and foremost, I'm a selfish creator, okay? I make it first for me. And the fact that you guys like it is fantastic and great, and it's really fun that you're joining me. But I'm going to be crazy by myself anyway, regardless. Because the reality is, videos that are realistic about the writing process do not perform well on AuthorTube. They just don't. And this is a vicious cycle. And the only way it's going to change is if we change it. So when you do run into younger creators or newer creators who are talking about the creation process better, they're doing it in the correct way, you need to like the video. You need to subscribe. You need to share that video with your author friends. Because that is, and you need to talk to them, have a conversation in the comments. That constant commenting train, that's everything. Even if you think you don't have anything interesting to say it anyway. Interact with the video. Interaction is everything on these platforms. And the only way we'll encourage the next generation of authors is if we're constantly talking about the actual meat of the process instead of what's trendy. And sometimes that is a video where you're like, wait a minute, weren't they just editing that? Like, didn't I just watch this video last week? Yeah, you did, because that's the reality of writing. I'm on the scene again. I'm back. I'm back again.
Oh my God, that's so true. Like,
it's gonna be repeat.
I struggle so much with some of my vlogs that I do on my channel because I feel like I am so repetitive sometimes. And I'm just like, but then you also don't know, like, who's going to be new to your channel, who's not, who's going to know things, who's not. And so I feel like it's a vicious cycle of like, how do I make this more entertaining? How do I keep going with my journey without being super repetitive and like blah, and then switching it up, which is why I'm trying to do some more like just like chatty videos in addition to vlogs so that I can space out the vlogs a bit more. Because
vlogs are a lot of work.
They are a lot of work.
So much. Like the editing process, all that footage, overwhelmed. Oh God. I can't.
Yeah.
I really admire you for being able to do as many vlogs as you do, because I would lose my mind. I did a couple vlogs back in like November and December, and they were hard to do. It's really hard for me to do vlogs. Mostly because my brain splinters in 2 billion different directions. And then editing, you guys do not see what goes on in the editing for a video for me. You don't want to see it. I've had times when I started a sentence and never even finished it. I went in a tirade, didn't finish the tirade, went into a separate tirade. Oh my God. There was one point I yelled at my computer. I was like, what the hell? Like, what did you just do? That makes no sense. Like, it's bad. So I try to script my videos now. Even if it's a vlog, I try to have like a general idea of like things I want to talk about, like talking points. Even this, like we have a general talking points, which I knew we probably wouldn't finish. That's okay. Just so we could try to have some structure here. But it's hard because like our brains are running 2 billion miles an hour, and it's really hard to rein that in for a video.
Oh yeah, definitely. I struggle with that.
If you guys like plug time, if you guys like vlogs, please check out Haley. Haley is kind of like the queen of vlogs. I rarely touch them because I can't function that way. But she handles the vlog stuff. So if you were interested in that kind of stuff, especially because she does like full-time teaching right now. And even when she wasn't full-time, she was part-time. So she's working and writing and applying for schools. So if you want to see what that looks like realistically, please follow her, because that's what it is. That is the journey right there on her channel. So please follow her if you're interested in that kind of stuff. Vlogs are hard, man. But yeah, thank you so much, Liv. There's a reason I recognize a lot of you in the comments. You guys are like my ride or dies. I see you guys in my comments all the time. And as you guys know, I will have a conversation with you in the comments. If you want to talk, I'm ready to talk. I absolutely, your guys' comments really do make a world of difference. They are amazing. And I love talking shop with you guys. I am a nerd and I love nerding it up with you guys in the comment section. It's so fun. So I absolutely love that. But you're very right. A lot of the videos that are more realistic tend to get ignored, and it kind of sucks. And the best we can do, we can't change what other people are doing, but we can change what we do. So
Right.
long as we are trying to uplift each other's stuff and liking and commenting and trying to like boost that algorithm, hopefully it will get better. It is hard though, because like most of us are like, got jobs and writing. And so having time to even watch YouTube, like
Yeah.
I'm trying to be better about it. Like I usually play a lot of videos when I'm doing chores and stuff, like multitasking, because I have to, otherwise it doesn't get done. But it is rough, but gradually I think it can help if we keep, trying. Yeah, Everest. I love talking comment sections. Yeah, it's really fun. I love talking to you guys about. I don't think
those are my favorite parts of
favorite. I can't choose a favorite
videos.
commenter. You guys have all over time, and hi, welcome to the stream. We're probably going to end soon, but thank you so much for coming. But yeah, I can't choose any particular favorite. We have a lot of really cool people that'll show up in like quite frequently in my comment section. I know Haley, you've got some regulars too that'll show up, and you love talking to them.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's my favorite part about posting.
I can't choose though, because you all bring up some pretty good points. I've had some people that have actually like brought up stuff I never thought of before. I love that stuff because there's so much to talk about in a lot of these videos, and there are lots of nuance. And I love when you guys bring up nuance I didn't even get to. I love, because we need that. We need to talk about the nuance of this stuff. We need to expand on this because it's not just one thing. It's like there are so many different aspects of character. And so being able to talk about all of that in different ways you can see it and different viewpoints is really great. I had someone, I can't remember who it was. I don't think they're in the stream right now. There was someone who actually had a completely different viewpoint. I think it was on my book review for Savior's Champion. I have so many comments on that video.
That one blew up.
Someone actually kind of thought of it in terms of like a character serving another character. And I still don't completely agree with that, but it is a different perspective. Like in some ways, yes, everything in your story serves the main character, kind of. I don't see it that way because I feel like that dehumanizes other characters, and that's not what I'm about because I'm a very character-driven author. So I feel like that lingo is dangerous to me personally. Like that kind of would strip my story of what makes it a story. But I can understand for someone who's more plot-driven, I could kind of see that because you're seeing it more in the detached way. It's not character-based, it's more plot-based. And, different strokes for different folks. Some people like plot over characters. I can't understand that view. I really can't. Like, I struggle with that. If your characters don't grab me, I can't do it. I'm sorry.
Characters make the plot, though. Like, you cannot have a good plot-driven story without, like, good characters. Like, it doesn't make sense. I see it. Like, I mean, plots, in my opinion, they do not work unless you have the character motivation to back them up. That's a part of the reason why my first draft didn't work, actually, was because my character motivations didn't line up to the plot that I was trying so hard to make happen, because that's what my mind was set on. And then I had to disregard my whole mindset and like re-go through and have those motivations. And now it's much more character driven and it works a lot better in my opinion. But yeah, that's just it's a dangerous mindset to just go plot based and not like care about your characters or have one character serving another character.
I have had people say that they actually read things for plot. I've seen, so I know there are readers out there that are like that. I know there are people that they're world people. And the
Mm-hmm.
world build is everything to them. And like characters could be flat so long as the world is interesting. And so I know that's a real thing.
I mean,
but it's hard for my brain to wrap around because I don't
Yeah.
see it that way at all. So it's hard for me to envision.
I mean, there's definitely been books where I keep reading because the plot is interesting or because the world is interesting, even if I don't like the characters. Like, have you read The Midnight Library?
I have not. I've heard about it.
But you've heard about it.
I've heard about it.
The first like 3 or 4 chapters. First of all, his chapters are like super, super short. And it like threw me off. Like at first, I was like, because my chapters in my book are like pretty long. Like the first chapter of my book, I think is like 34 pages on Word. So like I have like hefty chapters. That's the longest chapter in the book so far, though, so it's fine. But anyways, the first 3 chapters, it was so repetitive. Nothing was like super happening. Like the premise of the book, if other people don't know what I'm talking about, is there's this woman who I would think her name was Nora, and she passes away, and she was like on the verge of 30, you know, like her life wasn't going anywhere. It was that whole like kind of notion of like she threw her life away. Oh, she's turning 30. Blah. And because that's important. Like
I'm in my 30s. It's not that big of a deal.
But anyways, so she attempts to kill herself basically, and she ends up in
holy shit.
Yeah, like, well, I mean, her cat like died or something too. It was just like she just had like bad luck against like bad luck. It was like one thing after the next. So like the first chapter, like building up to that was like decent. It was like once she was in the Midnight Library, it was like, how many times can we explain what the Midnight Library does and like what the purpose of the books were? Because each one was like an alternative life. Like you pick one off the shelf and she can open it and she can transport into an alternative life based on all the regrets she had in her life that led up to her suicide. And I don't know, it was really interesting. Like the ending was like, I was like, I wanted to read it because it had like really good reviews. But it took me a while to get into it because I was just like, it was just, the chapters were so short. The prose was like bare minimum at first. And then once she was in the alternative worlds, like then like the character started to bounce a little bit more and like it grabbed me more.
It feels like maybe it was started in the wrong place of the story. Like maybe the book should have started further in action.
Oh yeah.
But hard to say. Like I'm not.
Yeah, it was like on the edge, and it's like the first line was like counting down until she actually passed away. So each chapter started like with this amount of time left and this amount of time left until she actually did, and then she was in the Midnight Library for like 3 chapters and talking with the librarian who was like her middle school librarian, the same person, and it was weird. It was like this between life thing. And like the ultimate like message was kind of cliche as well. It was just like, there's no better life than the life you're living. Like you shouldn't regret anything, that kind of theme. And I don't know. It was just
maybe overplayed.
It was a bit overplayed. And I think I'm pretty sure the author was male too. And just his whole like idea of like the turning 30 thing. Maybe she was 35, but it's still like the whole like, that's just such a like a negative connotation about women and their ages. It just like threw me off. I was like,
that's a throw off for sure.
I don't know. And I don't mind the idea of turning 30 eventually. Like I'll be 24 in May.
It's not that big of a deal. It's really not.
It doesn't seem like that big of a deal. And I have friends who think it's like such a big deal. And I'm like, I'm kind of excited to be older. Like, not gonna lie. Like, I feel like
the experience and life knowledge is nice. I have more confidence in myself than I did when I was 20. So your confidence increases, which is good. Because you've lived through so much, so you know what you like and what you don't, and have a more firm stance on that, which can be bad if you're inflexible and not open to learning. But so long as you remain open to learning is a good thing, because you can bring that experience into the learning, you can learn better. Real quick, Liv a while ago, sorry I didn't see this till now, your videos would do more if you use more SEO. Yeah, I know. I actually took a class and stuff like this back in college, forgot all of it because I hate math. I can't even begin to describe how much I dislike math and a lot of the algorithms that these platforms use. It really bugs me. I understand I could probably be doing better, and at some point maybe I'll investigate that. It's just not a thing I'm super obsessed with. Like it's not a priority for me because I didn't come on this platform to get views. And so like I want people to see my stuff in the sense of that I feel like it can help some people, because at the very least I wish to like ease some of the anxiety around writing and feeling like there's a right way to do it, and that's not necessarily the case. It's more like just taking your time and making sure you check everything, and that takes time, being patient. But I'm not super concerned with the marketing aspects, like because like I don't have any books published yet, and until I get to the publishing phase, I'm really trying not to touch marketing. Marketing scares the pants off me. I'm terrified of marketing.
I've been watching like some really interesting videos on just like YouTube growth and stuff recently. And like one of the big things is they're like, at least some of the creators that I've been watching about the YouTube stuff are saying like you shouldn't be promoting your stuff as much as most, because then you want it to start being picked up in YouTube itself, not through like Facebook or Instagram. And like I usually post on Facebook and Instagram, and maybe I'll send it to like some Snapchat friends or whatever. But like for this last one that I just uploaded, it was just like an intro thing, but I think I posted it on Facebook quickly, but I didn't do as much like anything else. And I mean, no, not a lot of people have watched it yet, but that's fine. I don't really care that much because it's just like because I missed my Friday upload this week because I was too busy. So I was like, oh, I'll just do this instead, because I'm going to do the live streams on my channel anyways, and I should let people know about it in a way that could spread on YouTube better. But I don't know. I think that the SEO stuff is so interesting. I'm trying to learn some more about it, but it's so confusing.
There's some small things you can do that aren't like too invasive or something like that. I think the problem is, at least for me, and like, yeah, this is I understand that that it starts long before you publish a book. I think the thing is, like with everything, you need to think about what your goal is. And for me personally, my goal is to write a really solid book. That is my goal first. Everything else is secondary or bottom of the list in comparison. So I am focused entirely on the quality first and foremost, because I need to be able to sleep well at night knowing that I made something really, really solid. So all of my energy, which I don't have a lot of, because as we were discussing, both Haley and I work day jobs that are very draining. I don't have a lot of energy to give to projects. So if I'm looking at how much energy I have in a given week or day, and I have to think about where I'm putting that energy, I have to consider what is best to put that energy into. So like people have brought up before that my video production isn't super high quality, that could have better lighting, better sound, better visuals on the screen. And it's like, yeah, I could, but I have to train myself to do that. That needs training. Training takes time I don't have. And if I'm looking at it in the scope of like what I really want out of my life, and this is where you have to sit down and figure out what you want. What do you want? If what you want is to sell books, if that's your main goal, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think that's evil at all. I think that's totally fine and legit. If that's your main goal, then yes, by all means, you should be structuring everything in your channel and everything you do around marketing. If that is what your goal is, and there's no shame in that at all. I actually have very high respect for people who they know that's their goal and they're going for it. They're focused, and that's where their focus is. There's nothing wrong with that. Know what you want. But that's the thing. You need to know what you want. And for me personally, where I am right now, and it could be changing in a year or 2 years down the road, but this year, my goal is to edit my book and get my book to a place where I feel comfortable looking into querying. That's where I am. And so all of my energy, which there's not a lot of, is funneled directly into that. It's not being funneled into lighting for YouTube. It's not being funneled into sound quality for my YouTube videos. If there are small things I can do to make it better, I will, such as lowering the volume of background music. That's something small I can do. But if it's something that requires training and tons of practice, I straight up don't have the time or energy for it. So I have to think, where do I want to put that energy? Well, I want to put it right back into my book, because that's where all of my focus is right now. So like, it really depends on what you want and what your goals are. And so if your goal is to sell, even if it's not necessarily selling right now, but it's something you do want to eventually do, if that's a big thing in your career that you want to fixate on, like, I want my book to be on physical bookshelves in Barnes and Noble. If that's something, a goal for you, you have to think, what are all the steps to doing that? And one of those steps is early marketing, probably. And that's totally fine. I do think you do have to be careful, though, because marketing on YouTube is kind of interesting. Because again, what audience do you want? What is the audience you're going for in the first place? For me, I'm chill with my channel going slower, because here's the thing, the commenters on my popular videos, such as Savior's Champion, are very different tonality from my commenters on my M.E.L videos. My M.E.L video commenters are writers that are serious about their writing, and they're really putting the effort in. A lot of the commenters on my more popular videos, they're not. And I've also gotten trolls. I've gotten red wing extremists that I've had to block. I've had people say some really horrible stuff on that page that I've had to take care of. Most of it's fine. Even if it's disagreeing with me, most of it's fine. But I have had a few really negative stuff that they're not writers. They've never written a thing in their life, and I can tell. So, like, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to say, I think that's the fine line too with doing those kind of review things, because you're targeted towards authors, but then you're kind of like on the verge of the whole like booktube thing and book reviews.
I'm right on that.
And so then like a lot of those people, I feel like those are the people who are coming and like have that different tonality, the ones who aren't writers, because I think booktube is such a bigger, I don't know, I think it's bigger than AuthorTube because it reaches a wider audience, because there's a lot more readers than there are writers who are watching YouTube, or who want book recommendations, or who want to watch a review on a book before they buy it, and etc. So I think that's the interesting fine line that your channel teeters on, that brings in its own challenges. I love your review videos. I think, and it's clear that they're marketed towards authors too.
Yeah. I structure them for authors, not readers. I mean, if you're a reader, you're welcome. You can 100% lurk on my page. There's nothing wrong. If you don't like writing, but you like listening about writing, feel free. I love having you here. But this is not for you, per se. And that's kind of the thing. It's one of the things I've actually been really thinking about, like on and off, not hardcore, because again, I'm focusing on my editing. But I have thought about marketing, and like, would I even want to market on this channel at all? Because here's the thing. People who are following me are writers, not necessarily consumers of books. I mean, writers should be consuming books. But the reality is, a lot of the people who are going to follow you as an author are not the people who are going to buy your books. Harsh reality here. You're talking to other authors who are busy writing their own books and their own projects. They don't necessarily have the time, energy, or patience to be purchasing your book. Some of the hardcore people are, because they're hardcore supporters of you as an author, and that's awesome. But the reality is, you're trying to now market to readers, which might be a completely different audience type than the audience that's naturally on your page. So, and that's why some authors have different channels. They have their channel that's more writing, and then they have, like, for me, I think I'm kind of at a place where if I do get to a place where I've, published my book and I want to market, I think I'll put a whole separate channel that's just marketing and talking about my book that's already out and talk about the characters. I don't think I'd post on my main channel. Not because I don't trust people or I'm trying to hide anything, but simply because that's not why y'all are here. Most people who have followed me follow me for my book reviews and the M.E.L series now. A lot of my recent subscribers, that's why they're here. They're not here for marketing, for me to market to them. They're not here for that. And like it's one of those things that I think about, what would I want as a viewer? Like when I follow people, I follow them usually for a reason. And although I do support them in whole and I'm not mad when they market, if they market too much, if it starts feeling like I subscribe to a commercial channel, I start getting irritated because that's not why I originally subscribed to this person. And I have unfollowed people because of that shift from content creation to advertisement. When that shift is too harsh, it's like, I don't want to be here anymore. Why am I here? Why am I watching this stuff? Yeah. So I think it's a delicate balance. I'm not saying it's impossible to do. I think it's totally possible to do. It's possible to use the SEO properly. It's possible to be doing these things. But I do think it's a major, like it's a whole thing you have to learn. It's a different ballpark. That's why in my brain, writing and publishing are not the same universe. They're not the same at all. And I think it's one of the things that makes AuthorTube kind of a difficult space to be in, because a lot of people either don't understand that or they do, but they don't know how they can bridge between those. So they try to make this like midway point. So you have these people on here that are trying to do both at the same time. And I think it's tricky just to do that in your personal life. Then to put it on your channel is really tricky too. Like how am I showing this on my channel, this bridge between these two worlds of being, a content creator and then being a published creator? And there's a difference, and your audience isn't always going to be ready or willing to follow that complete process. So like, I understand people are here mostly to see the process. They're not necessarily here to be marketed to. So, for me, for my channel and what I want it to be, again, it comes back to knowing what you want. I want this channel to show my complete story because I'm trying to chronologue what I'm doing. And so first of all, it's for me. It's for my purposes. It's me following my own journey and keeping stock of my time, stock of my accomplishments. And the fact that other people enjoy it is awesome and great. And I'm glad I can make this space that's fun for you all to come along and join me. But I'm not trying to market to anybody. That's not what my channel was originally created for. But that doesn't mean that marketing is evil. It has its place. It has its reasons why it exists, and it's there for a reason. There's nothing wrong with that. But for me, when I thought about like marketing on my channel, I realized that I really don't want to be, not in a normal capacity. I more want to show you guys the process of what that looks like. Like, what does it take to do these things? But I don't want to market to you necessarily.
Yeah, I feel that on mine. Like, I think like I try to include some tidbits or like sneak peeks of the book that I'm working on just because I think it's interesting and people might think it's interesting. But I hope like my primary audience is also writers. And if they buy my book eventually when it comes out, great. Yay. Thank you. I hope you enjoy it. But if you don't, like, okay. But I think like coming to this platform and expecting sales is a very tricky line because like you said, like you have this like info commercial thing. And I have also unsubscribed from some creators who have just been plugging their books, or they start like an Etsy sticker thing or like other stuff. And then they just talk about that like a lot. And I love seeing other people's processes. That's what I love promoting on my channel. I want to show people what I'm going through. And then the author tubers that I watch a lot of the time, I want to see their process. I want to see what they're going through. And if they're in the same process as me, like you and I are at the same spot in our journey right now, like I'm going to watch all of your stuff because we're on very similar paths and I could learn something about the path that I'm on by watching you and what you're going through. So I think like building up the community in that way, and like a community of like, yes, there are readers who come to AuthorTube too. And I think that's the hard part about growing as a small creator as well. When your audience is primarily writers, because I want to watch other small creator stuff, but sometimes if it's marketed towards like new writers or the more like tips and tricks and stuff, like I'm not primarily going to watch that. because I'm not at that phase in my writing anymore. Like maybe in 2018 when I first discovered AuthorTube, like that was the big rage and I would watch a lot of those. But I'm definitely not in that phase right now. And so yeah, I think it's just really interesting the way that growth works. And
but that's kind of like that brings around the whole point that a lot of people are fearing about, like AuthorTube dying, for example.
Oh yeah,
like,
that was a whole trending topic.
But the thing about that is every single video I've seen about that, it's because it's this middle part. This is the part we're in right now is the part a lot of people fall off because it's not popular to talk about. It's not interesting to talk about. And the pressure for these content creators to make entertaining content. And once this part happens, people drop off because it's no longer entertaining to them. And because like you said, people, yeah, it's real. And most people, and this is not a knock against people who participate in NaNoWriMo. I love NaNoWriMo. I participate in it myself. I will continue doing so. But most people who participate in NaNoWriMo do not finish. Most people who participate in a lot of these challenges cannot finish it. And they don't come back. Or if they do, it's very sporadic and they start a whole new project. And I recognize it's hard to get started sometimes, but the reality is a lot of people out there do not complete their projects, and they're not here for the complete project. They're here for that rush of serotonin for the start.
Right.
And that's what they're addicted to. And so they start following these content creators that, like you said, do these tips, tricks, things that a starter would be interested in. But once that content creator tries to make content going beyond that, the views drop. Because most people are stuck in the first part and they don't progress to the next part. The number of people who end up with M.E.L, the editing process, we are a small, tiny little group of people. We are tiny compared to the people who do NaNoWriMo. And that will always be a thing. Even if I got SEO perfect, it wouldn't matter. The number of people who would interact with M.E.L are always going to be small drop in the bucket compared to the people who interact with NaNoWriMo. Simply because this part is the work part. This is really hard.
Yeah.
There is no real rush like there is for NaNoWriMo. It's not the same thing.
Yeah. And this year was the first year that I actually completed Nano. Like I had done it since 2016 and I had never done it. And I watched content creators do it and stuff, but it wasn't until like I had my own channel and like I really like forced myself to do it and like try, because I feel like that's been the biggest benefit for my channel, and a big reason that I started my channel was to force myself to be consistent and to keep chugging even when life gets really hard and frustrating and busy with work and school and all of that. So for me, like that was the push that I needed to complete something new. And like I got the words, I didn't finish the book by any means, but yeah, it's so interesting to me because I feel like, and I'll be doing something similar when I go to Colorado, because that's a goal of 50K in a month as well. Just like it's based off of NaNoWriMo, which will be really interesting to see how that works in a retreat setting. But yeah, I don't know. Another thing that's just really interesting about that is that they were going to have like a young writer cohort and then the older writer cohort. And so it was going to be like 6, or I think it even started at like 13 to 17 and then 18 to 23. And then I was just like right on the verge, but I got in because I turned 24 while I'm going to be there. So I'm going to be one of the oldest writers there. They don't have any of the young people. There wasn't enough young people to sign up, but so it's just going to be 18 to 24. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see.
I think it's probably better to have the older people there. Just simply like, I'm just thinking about like legal battles and stuff. Like I would not want to have minors unless I had proper staff to deal with minors.
Oh yeah.
I don't think people understand how tricky that is legally. As someone who works in the child industry, like
no, I get you really exactly. Careful. I was like, I don't want to
everybody. Yep.
I don't want to stop teaching like a month early to go to a retreat to get away from kids and then to be surrounded by kids again.
Yeah.
Like
so
that.
I'm kind of
So
glad that you're free of that.
I was so relieved when we got that email that they didn't have enough kids sign up. And I was like, oh my God.
Thank God. Yeah. And here's
Thank
the thing,
God.
like, if you're a young kid that just happened on my channel and you're writing, we love that you're writing, hun. We're just tired. We're really, really, really tired. And it's not your fault. I know you're probably not the drama. It's probably your weirdo friends at school. We get it. It's okay. We understand. Like, it's just, it's a lot when you're surrounded by kids all the time for your job and you try to get away from that. It's hard. And because we are older, we do, like, if I see a kid who's struggling, or a young writer too, I've had like 13-year-old writers like find my streams like on Instagram and stuff and like start talking to me. I feel like I have to take care of them. There's a guilt. And I feel like I have to stop everything I'm doing to take care of them, which isn't good in the long run because they've got their own journey and they need to just grow and learn on their own. I should not be trying to help them too much. Like, every once in a while is okay, but you have that guilt, like you have to actually completely mentor them. But the reality is, unless they ask you to, you shouldn't. But it's hard because you have that guilt as the older person. So like, I get it. It's hard, but like, no hate to anyone who is like a minor who happened upon my channel. It's okay. We don't.
Well,
hate
I
you.
have
Just,
I have a couple of students. I have a couple of students in my class right now who want to be writers and are working on books and stuff, and they're 11 and 12.
Oh my God.
And
so
like,
young. Oh my God.
and so we connect a little bit. I'm like, you know, like I majored in creative writing. Like I know I'm teaching you math and science, but like, so,
Yeah.
and then they're working on a story in their ELA class, and I have students who want me to read their stuff and things, and it's really cute. Like, I'm very excited for it, and I'm like, yeah, I'll read it. But it is like one of those things too, where I'm like I would definitely not tell them that I have a channel by any means necessary, because my channel is not marketed towards kids.
No.
Like I click that it is not made for
Not
kids because
for children. Yeah.
not for children, because like, and it's not like my book is like, it's kind of like on the line of like new adult. Like it could work for like upper teens. Like I think they would enjoy it. There's nothing like super scandalous, but I do swear. Like
but
it's like, it's real.
My characters are in their late 20s, early 30s because that's where I started writing it, was that age group. So like, that's where my characters are that age group. They are adults. So yeah, I'm in that same boat where my characters are older, but yet technically there's nothing necessarily inappropriate. Like I don't have sex content and stuff like I don't write those kind of scenes. So.
I have a 14-year-old character, a 17-year-old character, and then
so you got a range.
And then my 3 other characters are like late 30s, early 40s. Yeah. So like it's definitely a range because it's like the parent age and the kids. So it's like, so I mean they could connect to those characters, but like they couldn't connect to my older characters.
That's kind of the tricky thing that I'm trying not to think about, is how to genre my stuff. Like, oh God,
yeah,
I don't have to think about it too much right now, just simply because I just want to make a good book. And I think you're in the same spot. You're like, I can't overthink it. I just need to finish this thing.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I don't want to deal with marketing it. It's going to be, marketing my book is going to be a mess because like I couldn't even narrow down a fucking genre. Like it's like dystopian, fantasy, some sci-fi, like
yeah, but so quite a few people in the comments have mentioned that they don't do NaNoWriMo. And you know what? I 100% support that, because here's the thing. NaNoWriMo is one of those things that it's a good challenge. So if you are having a hard time getting, it is also kind of accountability because so many people are doing it. It's a good opportunity for accountability, but it's not an ideal situation. Mm-hmm. In fact, it's a bad situation because it encourages burnout. It is a recipe for burnout, like hard burnout. It's very rare for me to come across people who completed Nano and who still have the energy to write in December. They usually completely burn dry, and then December they completely have to take off because they're unable to write anymore. So it's a very extreme situation, and I don't think, like, some people kind of demonize it and think it's like evil and destroying the. I don't think it's evil per se. But I do think it's one of those things, if you do not know your limits and if you don't have a good handle on them, it can be detrimental. So, and if you're a published author or you're trying to get published, it's not ideal either because you need quality, not quantity. And the problem with NaNoWriMo is it's quantity based.
Yep.
Not quality. And so
Yeah.
if you are someone who does a lot of that pre-write, who is very like editing as you go, NaNoWriMo is a death sentence for you because you are really focused on the quality before you finish a sentence, but Nano's just wants that word count. So I think what Nano's really best for is the very, very, very beginning when you have the spark of inspiration and you really want to drag that as long as you can until it goes out or it changes. Like for me, my spark usually changes. It becomes more fixated. So for me, sometimes I will talk myself out of ideas before I give them the chance to bloom. And that's not good because then I've cut the bloom off before I figure out what color it was. Like that's not healthy. I need to let it marinate a little bit because it might turn into a good idea. So, and that's where the idea of zero drafting, the good side of zero drafting can come in because it lets you word vomit. And so then you can see, okay, what is actually usable? And you might be surprised. There might be some stuff that comes up that is actually usable that you wouldn't have given the light of day if your editor brain was too fixated. So like, I can kind of get it. And I think that's where Nano can be good because it kind of forces you to just get it all out before you talk yourself out of it. So if you're someone who hyper fixates and tends to talk yourself out of even trying because you're a perfectionist and you talk yourself out, yeah, highly too. If you talk yourself out of it because it's not perfect enough, Nano can be good to get you past that because you don't have the time to be a perfectionist. You have to get it out now. However, if you're past that beginning phase, if you're in the phase where you're doing editing and stuff like that, I feel like depending on how you do it, Nano could be detrimental because now you've changed focus. Now it's no longer just getting it out. Now you need to fix it. Now you need to perfect. Now the perfection starts coming in. And now you need to slow down. Sometimes you have to slow down.
I think that's why I've tried to do it like since 2016 is because I do hyperfixate, and that's a part of like I think what my problem is with M.E.L right now with between the phase 0, phase 1 and starting phase 2 is I'm so hyperfixated on my outline and making sure it's good that I'm like scared to start writing or starting phase 2. And so that's where I'm kind of like, I'm in that in-between space where I'm kind of like, I kind of just want to force myself to write on Wednesday. But then I'm also like, it's not done yet. So that's why I'm like, okay, the 7th.
Yeah.
I just need to pick a date.
It's Wednesday for you guys, Thursday for me is when phase 2 is supposed to launch. My video for it anyway. But I'm going to be real with you. I have a feeling, and I'm going to talk about this in the video. I think I'm supposed to film it today if I have enough sunlight. I don't know. I might start losing sunlight soon. I'm probably going to be doing like this outlining while I go with scenes. But I don't know, doing something like that, this is going to be slow moving. And I feel like this is not going to be at the speed that I think it's going to be at. And I'm trying to prepare myself for being okay with that. And allowing myself to take the time, like we were talking at the beginning of the stream, allowing myself the time to do this correctly and to feel it's also about how I'm feeling about it. I need to feel closure on some of these steps. So like for you, Haley, like you need to have closure on your outline. And I think maybe the next question would be thinking about like, what would it take to feel closure for an outline? I guess.
Yeah.
Like what would that look like for you? How would you feel better about your outline?
I think it's just starting the new Scrivener. Like once I do the mice stuff and like getting Scrivener up and like put all of the new synopses in like a seemingly kind of order with everything. And then as I'm reading through from the beginning up to where I left off with NaNoWriMo, because I did get burnt out after NaNoWriMo. Then I had grad school stuff too, but like I use that as an excuse not to write as well. But that's a whole other issue. But yeah, so I feel like if I'm able to get those like little chapter synopses in and like I think it just comes back to the whole like stepping back and being able to actually see it come to life. Because like I have my note cards here, I have like the mice templates or whatever, but like it's still hard for me to picture like my next step, like which scene I'll start and all of that. So
one of the things I was thinking of doing, but I can't find it now. I probably need to go to a bigger Daiso out in the city. But I was thinking about getting a roll of craft paper. You know how they use that like wrap gifts sometimes, like it's just brown paper. It's a roll, so you can make it really long. I was thinking of creating the timeline and outline like on this giant line because it's going to be big. I can use like sticky notes for the things I'm not certain of, so I can move them around at will.
Oh, that's great.
I think part of the thing for you and me is like that bird's eye view is kind of hard because getting everything in one spot and being able to navigate it is kind of rough. For me, my brain goes, if I can't see it right now, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I need to have everything on one page, but that's not necessarily like possible oftentimes.
Yeah.
And like the note cards are great. And I might have to end up doing that if I can't find some craft paper big enough. But like ideally, I want it like on one page or something like that, like something I can like hang.
Oh yeah.
So like you know,
like mine, they're grouped together, but like I don't know. It's like it was easy to flip kind of because I mean I cut them out, so like I have to do some like origami shit. Getting it on the paper and like all of that. I don't know. I feel like I like the color coding.
Yeah.
But I like when it was all out, but like I couldn't leave it on my floor and I don't have the wall space in my room. I guess I could have brought it down here in the basement where I am now, and I could like we have blank walls like where I'm looking like out there.
I also sometimes now take like because picture quality is so good now that you can zoom in. So I've been taking pictures sometimes too. So then you can take the picture of the group when it's all laid out, and then you have that picture and you can just zoom in to read it and stuff. That's somewhat, so I would recommend maybe doing that. So spread it out in a spot that's got good lighting, maybe near a window or something like that, so you can get some good lighting cast on it. Try to take a picture. Just make sure it's clear enough so you can zoom in. That way you always have it laying on the floor in a way. Take a picture, it'll last longer.
Right.
Yeah. But
oh my God,
true will probably race across just as you're snapping a picture, like, no. I had it. I had it all laid out.
It didn't last. It didn't last.
That's one thing I got over you. I don't have any pets, so I don't have to worry about that one. It's one thing I got going for me.
Yeah. My dogs were walking all over my outline when I was trying to do that. It was they were lying on it. They were walking over it. Like at one point,
they were trying to figure out why you were so fixated on that part of the room, and they were like, "Well, if she's focusing on this, I might as well be in the frame because
right?
Who better to focus on than myself?"
They're like, "This part isn't supposed to be here. It's supposed to be over here."
Let me just do this for you. Let me help you out here.
Right?
Oh my God. Yeah.
At least they're not puppies who would like eat note cards or anything. That would be bad.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, the puppies are a problem. But yeah, the next phase is going to be interesting. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be really awesome to get some work done and to get some more movement going. But I think I'm right there with you, Haley, in that the outline is posing a bigger problem than initially anticipated, which is like, I mean, I say initially anticipated in the sense that like my time schedule is taking more time than anticipated, but I kind of knew in the back of my mind this was going to happen because this is the backbone of your story. So of course, this is something that's going to take a lot of time and energy. So we kind of both saw this coming, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how far we can get. Hopefully we should have another live stream somewhere during phase 2. We're still trying to talk about when exactly. So it'll probably be the later part of the month. I was about to say year. Oh dear God. We probably will revisit stuff like this at the end of the year, but
yeah,
you
probably.
know, we're stuck here for the long haul, y'all. But
Yeah.
as far as this project goes, probably the tail end of February, we'll probably have another live stream. Hopefully, God's willing.
Yeah.
God's willing. But this was really awesome to hang out and talk about progress. I think we had some really great discussions about stuff, and I'm really looking forward to what's coming up next. So it's so funny because I think we're getting more viewers now, but we're about to
are
end.
we?
So it is. It is what it is. You got to get some sleep, Haley.
I do. I have to be at school tomorrow morning, and it's almost 9:45. So I should probably head off. Got to get ready.
We
To
should
bed.
head off. But this has been really, really fun. We'll definitely do live
Yeah.
streams again. Haley's got a channel. Please check her out. She does vlogs over on her channel. So if you're into that content, definitely head over there.
Yeah.
And maybe if we can, we might have more live streams. We'll see. We'll see how scheduling works. Scheduling is kind of tough right now. Both of us are full-time workers. But Haley definitely does have a live stream that is already scheduled to happen. I believe that is the 3rd for me.
For you, it's the 3rd. For everyone else who's in the States, it's the 2nd. Wednesday the 2nd.
In the United States, it's February 2nd in the
February
evening.
2nd. Yes,
for
in the
me,
evening.
It's the 3rd in the morning.
Yes. But yeah, so I'm doing after work writing sprints. So they're going to be from 5 to 6 p.m. Central Time on my channel. My channel name is Haley Writes. So pretty easy to remember as long as you spell the Haley in the correct fashion. But yeah, so it should be really fun. I'm hoping that it will really help me focus in and power through the start of phase 2 of rewriting this book and starting to rewrite and stuff. So I hope to see some familiar names down the line. And it was great chatting with all of you and meeting some of you. And yeah, it was really awesome.
Thank you guys so much for joining. This has been really, really fun. We're going to go ahead and log out. This video should upload to YouTube. So those of you who just came in the last second, you should be able to play the replay. And please add comments, like, and subscribe if you want more. That's the fastest way to have us show up. Small creators like us do not usually show in an algorithm unless you are subscribed or regular commenting. Ideally both.
Hit that notification bell.
So please do that if you'd like to see more. Thank you guys so much for joining us. This has been awesome. Thank you, Haley, for joining me today. This has been really fun.
Thank you.
We hope to see you on both of our channels very soon. So bye, guys.
Bye.